paper or the electronic version? Okay.
Here is a redo of what they did.
Uh-huh.
So I still have more work in that, but it gives you an idea if we want to move forward.
Okay. Okay, you don't have all the parcel numbers corrected. And then it's gonna take a little time to put together a legal description for it, but we'll do that.
You can definitely get that lady on the phone too. She's very amenable.
Can we
to
start
whatever.
scheduling Jody at 10:05 so we doesn't have to run?
Yes, I would be fine with that. The nice thing is, you know, in October, he will be coming down one flight of stairs. He'll be right there. He will, actually, there's actually, I think we're gonna put a
Fireman's pole. just
yeah,
like-
fireman's pole. He'll just-
Either that or we need to put a gym in so he can study his exercise.
Whenever you're ready, well, you lost your partner, but
That's okay.
it's okay.
I'll keep going.
Yes.
Okay, we have a couple items, 2 items on your consent agenda, actually 3 that involve us. One we talked about last week, and that's our temporary carpenter position, refilling that. Item number 9 is a request for concurrence to reject all bids on the Roosevelt drainage project. So what happened was we use our small works contracts for mostly facilities projects. In fact, probably 99% of the time. And because they're low dollar amounts. And so the guys that do mostly road stuff pulled the contract and modified what they thought they needed, except for one item, and that's the tax item. So on all road projects, the WACs require there not to be a tax item, that it's included in each bid, unit bid item. So that means that on facilities projects, the tax, each item is taxed. They have different taxing brackets, and there's different ways contractors that do facilities or building work are taxed and how their taxes are structured versus the road guys. So we used the wrong taxing part, and so we can't award it. We have to rebid it. There's no way to get around it. It was our error, and that's unfortunate. So what we'd like to do is go back out to reject these and go back out to add today with another small works, same thing, and we have to rebid it. That's the only fair way to everybody. Because it would be, or has the great possibility of being contested if we were to award. So anyway, that's the history for number 9, and we'll rebid it. It's unfortunate, and it doesn't happen very often. Okay, item number 10. A property owner on Bickleton Highway asked to donate the right-of-way at their property. Basically, we have an easement for the road, and they want to donate their 30 feet of right-of-way. And so there's a donation process, and which we benefit from by receiving a right-of-way, deeded right-of-way, which gives us all the rights, and then actually takes that strip off the tax roll essentially, so the property owner isn't paying taxes on it for property they really can't use anyway.
So that's the property's owner's only fiscal reason for giving it away is they don't have to pay taxes on it. I mean, they're not making any money off this. That's what I'm saying. Why are they giving this away? Why would he give something away? But
Yeah, sometimes they do it where, and it's sort of like that on this case, where there's another, basically it creates 2 lots.
Yeah.
So it's a legal subdivision. So if I own enough property on both sides of the road.
that's kind of where I'm coming from. Is there a motive for this, and what is that motive in your opinion?
It wasn't clear to me on this one, but we're happy to clean things up and have the rights to the right of way.
Personally,
Okay, annual striping contract. We have all of our contract and bond signed, and then we're just waiting to set up a pre-construction meeting with the contractor and define the schedule for the start of work. So if it stays like it is today, it might get started earlier than usual, but I'm sure we'll have some weather ahead of us. Design side, Courtney Road. So we have 10 signatures out of the 11 needed. And supposedly the last guy has agreed. We just haven't connected, our right-of-way agent hasn't connected with the property owner to get a signature. So that's where we're at with the last property owner. And then.
So when do we, I mean, we got to get out to add at some point. I mean, if we're, the clock is ticking.
Yes, it
And
is.
then where are we at if for some reason we run up against something? Because I know there was concern, 2 years ago about the grant funding and the schedule and the timing. What would happen if because we don't know, we could get bids that are like crazy numbers.
Yes,
They're gonna
we'll
get
have-
bigger and bigger too.
Right.
yeah. Later we
So just remind me on the grant funding, the state funding that we received does this project have to go this year?
this year. So at some point, we.
Okay, well, it's always possible.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna
So,
combine.
yeah. So we talked about combining these projects because if the bigger the project, the more we'll attract bigger
Yes.
contractors and we'll get a better deal.
Sure.
So we have a paver. The way we organize this, and Jeff can probably help me out, but we have a paver and a reconstruction. And we wanted to pave the whole thing. And originally in the CRAB said, you might not be successful if there's like 8/10 of a mile in between. If you cut this off, you'll be successful at getting the lower piece and the upper piece as well. And which we did. So we got grant funding for both sections. And we kicked around, how do we clean up the middle? And then we originally thought we could tie them together, even though there was that short section in between, and they said, oh no, you can't do that. So what we want to do is go back and connect them, pave it with our dollars, just continue the paving in that 8/10 of a mile. And so that way we can actually combine them and it's one big project. Because if not, the paver needs to go out. And we don't want to be driving across the new pavement to build the reconstruct for a year. So we want it all paved at the same time after they're done with the dirt work. And so we asked, CRAB has said, yeah, we'll go ahead and move forward with combining them, which what that does is they give us the later date. So one of the projects, the reconstruct, it had to go to add by April, had to. And so now what this does is it buys us more time, at least from CRAB's, and that our new deadline is a year from April to go to add. So anyway, it buys us more time this year or into next year, which I don't
Next
really want to.
April.
Yeah, we don't want to go that far.
Okay.
So anyway, but then we have other state dollars that this year they need to be obligated. That's because they keep kicking that can forward for the money that Senator King got us.
Right.
So, but that's scheduled to go this year too. So, but there's no date like the CRAB date on it. So
Okay.
So you need to get this signed and get it out by April, is what you're saying.
we bought a little time for getting it out on the CRAB end
Yeah.
by combining them. But still, I don't know that. The bad thing is it still pushes us out to later and later where I think we're going to end up with challenges in getting great bids,
Right.
unless we wait longer.
Well, I mean,
until
are we
after-
prevented, I mean, is the thing that's preventing us from going to add is that we still need that last signature?
Yeah, we
Yes.
still need that.
We still
Are we required or can we just,
we're required.
okay, well then never
You
mind.
have to sign off. Before you go to add, you have to sign off that you have the right of way.
Yeah,
Okay.
with both agencies that are giving us dollars.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then
Yeah,
never
so
mind.
we're stuck here until then, and, then our decision becomes, do we go out now, knowing that it's probably not likely we will get great bids, or even we'll have very many bidders, which is an issue in itself, or wait till, after the season, like September, and we go out and we start and we do a clearing and grubbing, because that's a huge part of the job. And if you remember, we all of a sudden got more restrictions in the Forest Service piece with woodpecker now, not just the gray squirrels and everything else, that it might be a good thing, because then we can start moving utilities and do all those things like we did on Snowden Road about a decade ago, is we did a clearing and grubbing basically the first fall, and then that wintered over, and then when the weather gets good, they start right away. And that may be a better approach, at least for getting bidders and competitive bids at this point.
Can you write it either way and give them the leeway? If they have the opening and they want to start now, then they can, versus if they want to do that.
We can, but the risk for us is the cost. So we have to, like we ran into on Bristol Tunnel and Courtney, when a job winters over and it's pretty much exposed dirt, we had lots of challenges, and the cost goes up for us to take care of it if we do too much work. We have a lot of slopes to maintain and those kinds of things. I mean, we could do it that way, but we'd have to recognize that it will cost us more to winter it over fully exposed. And we take that cost on, because it's basically whatever happens, we have to pay to maintain it during that time period. So at least on Bristol Tunnel Courtney, the slopes were finished, and so we were able to go back in and do some, it's attack a fire, basically. It's like spraying something over the top of a slope to just cover it and seed it. And but that wasn't cheap either.
No, that was very expensive, because it's special tackifier.
Yeah, so there are extra costs associated with doing too much, but we might have time to consider that too, and see what makes sense to do, because there might be some things we can have them push forward with that won't get us into trouble in the winter.
Well, I mean, though, if you're planning to go out this year and start construction this year, somebody's going to jump on it. They've got a hole. They might bid on that. If they don't have, and because we're so far into it, if they don't have that chance, but they do have a small hole in the fall for doing the clearing and grubbing, and then they're setting themselves up for next year for their bid. If you go out to bid allowing either way, you might be able to double the number of people bidding on it, and then people might, the cheapest might be the people who are looking at it next year. The cheapest might be somebody who was banking on a big project that got pushed back.
Yeah.
But at least it's given them options, and whenever people have more options, usually the price goes down.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think almost at this point, it probably makes sense, because we're not even there yet, and then we have to get our approvals for our funding, although we don't really need it until we're building something and need reimbursement. But I just think with the current climate, it may make the most sense to wait to bid. I don't know that we're going to get anybody. We may get one or two, but they'll be expensive then.
I like the idea of sending it to bid both ways, because I personally don't think it's going to get any cheaper. I think we're heading for inflation, and things are going to get a lot more expensive in the next year or two. So that's just a personal opinion. You're the professional. So.
Well, I guess at this point, it's a non-issue right now, because we still don't have the last one.
Yeah,
That's the thing we need.
I don't think you would entertain going out. It'd be nice to see what happens on the 9th, because that'll be kind of give us something when we open bids there.
Right.
And then, because I still have a lot of connections in that industry, one of the things we'll have to talk about and get approval from, if you remember back in the days when we had hail and some of those days, when we first got here, there was a spec that allowed cost escalation for fuel, and all of them want that, but WashDOT has said absolutely not. They won't do that. So of course, they're saying build accordingly. So
So we're gonna bid it as if.
yeah, so they're bidding at $5 a gallon
$100
fuel.
a barrel.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, it'd be
For the
better.
asbestos clause.
Yeah.
Assume it's in everything.
For us, it'd be better if we put the escalator in though, because then they'll give us a better price.
Right.
Knowing that, you know,
If something happens.
if something
they're
does
covered.
come up, we could,
Right.
and we had that in our other contract at Hale. And I think it cost us, you know, 10 grand. But we
it
got,
saved us way
yeah,
more than $10,000.
because we got the 7 miles of road built for right at $1 million.
Right.
Boy, those were the days.
Those
Yeah.
were the days, right. We just need a, global near recession, and that'll bring the costs back.
Careful, yeah.
No, that was not a good, it worked out for us, but not us collectively.
We built a lot of miles.
We
of
did
road
build a
for
lot of miles because it was.
Not very many
it was
dollars.
cheap.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I didn't mean to get us off on a rabbit trail, so.
that's okay. We need to talk about those things. Let's see. So Old Mountain, Jeff mentioned the bid opening on the 9th of this month, so next week. And nothing, we haven't heard anything on the grant funded safety projects. They're still in WashDOT's hands. We're waiting for approvals to go to add on those. And the paving projects we'll have plans to WashDOT this week, and then it's 6 weeks, but we still have bidders interested in those paving projects. So that's good news. Let's see, maintenance projects. Let's see, it's grading season, so we're shifting to grade and vegetation cleanup alongside the roads, pothole patching, for pretty much across the county. That's what the crews are doing. I think Bob's crew on the far east end are still cleaning up some of the quarries, so we can clean those up and stop paying the permit fees. That will be good. The building, let's see, they're still chipping away at the windows. The roofers are back this week, so the roof's going in. They actually was able to walk up the stairs to the roof now, so that's kind of nice instead of ladders. The center temporary stairway that was in the main entry is gone now, and both stairs are open, and it makes it a little nicer to go over there, and I'm sure for the guys working there as well as people visiting. And let's see, roofing, electrical, they're still, all the subs are there. I think we even have our civil site work guy over there installing the fire riser and the FDC connection on the outside of the building on the east side. And then I know that Jeff and Rob are working to get an RFP out for the video recording equipment that's going in the commissioner's chambers in the new building. That'll allow you to select somebody that can give you what you need. And then we'll end up with a credit because we'll be deleting some of the equipment that was already going to be provided by our contractor. So we'll see that one before long. Let's see, furniture. I didn't bring over anything new, and I'll probably email that to you. I think I have 4 samples of furniture that are, I think, closer to what may work for us. They're not so modern looking and more traditional. And so.
Same ones that we talked about last week, or just not?
No, we actually dug for some, and then I sent them to Christy from Hyphen last week, and they've been working to pull something together for us this week, but they just haven't got it. So maybe by Wednesday, they'll have something for us to look at. But I do have 4 that I told them, this is closer to what we want. It's actually the same furniture vendor, you know, who was sending us the other stuff. And so I think we're,
Yeah, this is a hard no. Stop trying to sell us this.
yeah. But so I'm hoping that we'll get something better. And I'll go ahead and forward those 4, at least that I have. But it's stuff that we found, and then we pulled out 2 that they had sent us. But it's still, I don't think, everything that the company Steelcase has to offer. So anyway, hopefully they'll do a better job. Wow, I gotta start talking faster. Still reviewing the bids for the front steps and entryways. Jail board, the contractor that's doing it, I think, I'm pretty well convinced that they underestimated greatly their time that it would take to install all the equipment. So they're still working. I know that our person wants to see them complete this week, and I know they're starting to transition over. We've repainted the control room and cleaned it up, so it's all ready for them. And supposedly they're starting to verify that the functions of the new system will work before they transition over. So that's kind of the process this week, and whenever they're done, they'll transition over. But I know they're still connecting wires. They're still connecting wires in the closet downstairs. So that's my update. I'm sorry, Dan, it's not happening faster, but
Put on a good
You
front.
don't have to speak to me.
I know you got.
She's on nights now. I don't have to talk to her for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, by then hopefully we'll be, but they haven't asked for any more money, so the
I was
contractors,
gonna say, that's the kicker to me.
they
I was
have
gonna ask
not,
that, but
we've talked about that this morning, so.
they should have bid it first.
Yeah.
Radio sites, Jeff?
We're still working on negotiations with the, we actually got it hammered now, so we should have something here in the next week. Or so, depending on when, we got some other things to attend to. Klickitat upgrade station, I just updated Jeff. The electricity will go in here in the next couple of weeks. We're actually gonna take down the site 3 different times. So we're gonna coordinate with Jeff and his group. First time to split the power in the building, because we have our own meter for that room. So that'll be one. Second time with the equipment, we're gonna try to get those 2 coordinated, but that may not happen. If we could, we cut it down. And then when we put the gen set in, the gen set's on back order and it won't be here till May or June.
So what's the workaround while the site's down, as far as to have coverage down there? Yeah,
Yeah, well, we working on it.
okay.
But we're gonna limit it to a very, very short window.
We've had to do this before, and there's mitigation steps we can take.
Okay,
Trailer repeater, even though the one the county owns this place in Sadis, to mitigate the lack of a site there, volunteer built his own replica. So we'll probably use that to place
Okay.
in that area. And there is still mobile coverage down there to a reasonable degree without that side in place. Just no portable.
Okay.
We'll work it out.
okay.
And we'll include the fire chief and the sheriff's office.
All right, I'm gonna kind of quickly go through this last stuff because I think one of these issues will take a bit.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Gordy, I just wanted to say you've got time.
Okay,
Even if you went 15 over, I think the
We can.
schedule would accommodate that.
okay,
So don't just, yeah,
Yeah.
take the time you
You're
need.
fine.
okay, thank you. Okay, so we finally, my accountants finally are starting to get ahead of year end, and they have time to think about interviewing somebody new to refill Jen's spot. And so we'd like to ask permission then to, actually not Jen's spot, because Kathy filled Jen's spot, and now we need to fill Kathy's spot. So we'd like to advertise, get permission to advertise to refill that spot.
Now, Just kidding.
All right, thank you. And then we're also getting closer to opening up Trout Lake Park again. And so last year,
Is that gonna be
we,
used with COVID? Are they allowed to camp, or are we just being
Yes.
prepared
Yes.
to hope that it's?
No.
No, we were open last year.
yeah,
We have social distancing at the
Right.
campgrounds. We opened like every other one or
6 foot tents, basically.
Yes,
yeah. So we'd like to go ahead and refill that or get the same people that did it last year interested in coming back.
Oh,
And that's
good.
great because we got great reviews from the people out there around the park.
Can
in the
you remind
community.
me of what their pay or contract was? I don't remember.
It's around 2,000. I don't have the exact dollar amount with me, but it's
Oh,
around
that's
2,000.
fine.
Let's see, so then just kind of a follow-up on the Oregon Trail Rally. I talked about 2 different dates, so typically they'll come in May with the national race. And this year they want to test these sites, the roads that they had asked to use in May. And then the national race would be in November, first week in November.
So test, does that bring in their own 3, 4, 5 cars, or is that
Yeah.
an actual event?
Yeah, make sure those roads will work for them. Yeah. So right now they've asked for, and we've given them addresses to all the property owners. So we want to make sure they contact them initially, and then so we can get feedback. If somebody has real heartburn with what they're proposing, we'll know and you'll know. And then right before the race, within 2 weeks before, they send out another notice that, hey, this is coming up. And by that time they have their schedule and they know when they're gonna run those legs of the race. So
Do you know if they're thinking about this national race in November just this year because it's COVID, or are they thinking about moving it forever?
no, I think it'd be better if they moved it forever, but just for COVID, they're hoping that they'll be able to have spectators in November.
Well, here they can have spectators.
Let's see. Klickitat mill site access. Let's see, one of your, should be the last aerial photo in your packet. And Dave, this is one that you had asked about. So Randy Benson is the owner, I'm pretty sure, of the property that wants to gain access down our access road. So the access road off of Durkee Road in Klickitat is the red line, and it is basically a downhill ramp right down to where it flattens out where the mill site is. But basically while it comes down our property, then it crosses on someone else's property, an adjacent property owner, before he can get to his property again. You can see our one building that's remaining. So we have our asbestos person that's going to check asbestos today on the gray house behind us, house that we're removing on Courtney Road project. And they're also going to test this building so that we could, because our plan is to remove this building. The reason why it really should remain closed for now is because people looking for recycled steel went into this building and removed all the gussets and bolts that hold the building together inside. And so it's really not necessarily a safe place to be. And so right now, I think it should remain closed to the public. Randy Benson has access by the Hall Road, which is the green line. It's shown basically on the north side of the mill site property, and it's up kind of on the hill. So he has to use that and then kind of wind down into his property. And you can hardly see it, but there's a little building that spans the flume that goes through there. And he's gone back and upgraded that inside. The building department got a complaint, and they went out there and had some requests of Mr. Benson to kind of square things up, but they are not using it as a living quarters. And so I think there are less requirements. And so anyway, they're I think up to date from what Lynn said with the building department, but there have been some issues with that. anyway, I would recommend not allowing access until we get rid of our building at least.
Okay, and I'll forward you the request. It actually wasn't Mr. Benson, it was somebody else.
Mary,
Okay,
right, it was Mary. The one that owns all the other property.
Oh.
No, it was actually, I'll forward the email that I got to everybody. So you
Okay.
can see it, because he did include him. He was talking about walking across, because apparently this lot is, somebody forest, it's like a forest company.
Yes, yeah,
Detour
yep.
timber.
Right, and they do allow public access on their land. And so this person's down here and they wanted to walk across here to get onto this property on the, basically across the parking lot area down on the south end. But it's the same thing as if you open, conversations with the prosecutor, it's like, it's either, we can't really grant access to an individual. If it's safe for one person, it's safe for the
Same
public.
for
and it's
everybody.
Public land, and
Yeah.
the public should be able to go on it. And so, yeah, at this point, the advice is we should, pursue getting it so folks can go on it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, we'll just open it up and people can go on it's their land.
right,
So the only reason it's closed is because it's not safe right now. that
Yes.
Someone, and I've been in that, we went up and toured that building several years ago, and it's like, they literally went in and stole all
Yeah.
the guts out of it.
yeah,
Pretty gutsy as far as even the doing it
I
part.
know,
That it didn't collapse and fall on them. Apparently it's better built than we thought. So
Yeah.
Doesn't need any bracing apparently.
Part of the roof has caved in.
Oh,
but the goal is to remove that.
Yes.
okay.
So, but then we have to get ecology's permission to do that after
Yes.
we determine what we need to do. All right, so last thing is the Williams pipeline easement issue. So there's a map in here, it's probably right now it's probably the best thing to show. Down there where the Hood River Bridge connects to Highway 14, that's where the gas equipment was hit and took out the natural gas to white salmon and binion when it was winter. So originally they got a temporary easement to do construction, and now they're asking for a permanent easement in that yellow hatched area. Part of that, we can't get an easement together today. There's no way, because if you kind of see the property lines inside of that, wander around, there's actually two parcels that the county has, a little triangular piece, and then the bigger piece, which is where the city of White Salmon is interested. And then the lower part of that yellow strip is WashDOT's, and we don't control that. So we have to be able to define our area on our lots to write an easement to do this. So today, with your permission, we could agree to give them temporary access, knowing that we would give them a permanent easement when it's written up, and possibly as early as next week, but maybe not. Kim only works, and she's the expert in doing this. She only works today, and then she won't be here till next Monday and Tuesday. So anyway, that's probably the best and quickest way we can do this. I talked to Greg, and he just said, yeah, whatever you need to do. I don't think anybody, the city or anybody's going to be disagreeable to granting an easement for this, since it really serves everybody in the communities here.
Just got
I don't know, Matt, but if I can add, that both the mayors of City White Salmon and Binion have been pushing me to make sure that pipeline folks make that so that this can't happen again. They've actively been asking me to follow up with the gas company.
Right.
To make sure they fix this problem. So they shouldn't have any issues with allowing access.
All right.
Yep.
So did you tell them for the temporary easement, they gotta tear down the house?
I haven't talked to him, but that's probably a good thing. Just take the house before you go.
Hey, yeah, take the house and then we can include that in that easement.
Right. Yeah, so if that sounds like a reasonable approach, to give them a temporary construction easement or construction permit to get started, we can do that fairly easy, to follow up with the permanent easement.
Is it going to, I'm fine with that. I think maybe they're okay with it. Is it gonna complicate things if we're mid-trend, because the commitment from the county was to transfer that parcel to the city.
We'll just transfer it with an easement on it.
Yeah.
But temporary, I know, but if we haven't, depending on, I guess, although I guess you said we could add
We
the
could do
permanent
it
one
pretty
fairly
quickly.
quickly.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they asked for, is a permanent,
Okay, yeah.
not a temporary.
I have one question backing up, expenditures that we spent, 6.2 on the building over here last year. Either you or my seatmate, how much of that was our funds and how much of that came out of the loan? Any idea?
We have to go back and look
Yeah.
what we had in,
Because I know we
Because
were
from
planning
the
on spending our funds, maybe somebody knows that answer. How much were we thinking of spending of our funds on this project, not counting the loan? Did we know that when we're on top there?
The treasurer, I believe, just came on.
Maybe the treasurer knows.
yeah, well, I know he knows.
I don't need that answer now, I was just hoping they
Yeah.
had it in their head.
Couple million,
I think y'all need like 2 million.
Yeah.
or 4 million?
is what,
Okay.
yeah. As far as the, because we did a bunch of pre-development expense
Yes.
that we paid for. And I think that's really gonna be a discussion for the board later, because depending on where we come out with construction costs, what our loan, what is available, we may have room. So we were trying to decide, I think we'll have to decide, do we want to recapture some of our initial investment of the cash that we used our own money and roll it into the loan, or not, don't take as much of the loan. And because we've already spent the money. So that'll be a discussion for the board to make a decision.
The dollar amount that Greg's using to go after, and I don't know that we, like you said, firmed it up with how much we really want to go after or get, but Greg's dollar amount includes all the costs
Right.
from back at the very beginning, our cost, the consultant cost to design
Oh,
it.
so when he did
We wanted
loan, he did
they're all
loan for
there.
everything.
Right. And then we can decide how much.
We've already thrown some, so. got it.
Yes,
Right.
and we can define that, what we've already paid of our own money. I'll have that for you next week, or I'll email it to you sooner.
Well, I'll come see you later today, so. We
Okay.
won't have it that early, but.
Okay, that's it, unless you got something else.
No, that's it.
Jeff, did you get that email out to the Technical Road Standards Committee? And are you gonna be moving on that?
What I did is I set up a meeting with Rick, because there's the original three, and then we kind of got the selection to kind of, is Mochi, Rick, and myself, Rick Graves. So I made contact with him. So we're meeting tomorrow to figure out how we're gonna coordinate this. Because just from what I've heard back from some of the people, they don't want to use Zoom. They don't think it'll work well. Just because of the fact you need to transfer documents and you're gonna go a lot of different ways, but we may be stuck with that. We do have a couple other options we're gonna look at, but again, it leads into a bigger discussion about, how we're sitting with the facilities. Because while we can meet in here, does that mean we could bring committees into a place like this? Does that mean now we're open to the public? So we have to broach that whole, because we talked about maybe meeting at the senior center or their dining room. And then we could get everybody in there and meet, but again, now we go back to, are we open to the public?
Yeah, we had that problem at the fairgrounds too, because, where the fairgrounds can be open and up to, I think it's like 200 people.
Right.
And so how do we manage that? Because lots of people are calling, they want to have weddings, they want to schedule events for this summer. So that would be open to the public. And so I think there'll be some potential pressure to do other things.
Right, because that's a county facility.
county,
So
yes,
then-
yeah.
Are you scheduling those events for those people that want to use them this summer? Or are you telling them, no, sorry, we're closed to the public?
We tentatively told them we'll take the date, but we have to have a discussion with you guys and the prosecutor and Aaron to determine what makes sense based on the current rules. So that's kind of where
It
we're
could
at, but I think
change
we need to,
Exactly.
yeah, which can change, even if today it's okay.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think people understand that, but they just want to know, can we do something? And I think we need to
Well,
have
my
that discussion.
assumption would, be the general assumption was that it will be less restrictive this summer than it is today.
Yeah,
Right. I guess
Yes.
my point is I don't want to,
You hope.
I don't mind telling them yes with the chance that it's a no. I don't want to tell them no because we're waiting on a firm
Right,
yes.
right.
I want to make sure that door is open and
Right.
not be closed.
it's a maybe right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
people are tentatively reserving dates and.
Is it a real maybe or is that like a mama maybe?
Well, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it. The rules say we can.
I mean, the
Yeah.
rules say we
Say
can
good.
now, so it's not really, it's
We need to-
yes now, but it could be.
Right, could be,
Right.
no.
It could be changed
Yeah.
because
Well,
we
that's
don't
my
know.
thinking. If
Yeah.
the rules say yes, we need to be a yes now. If the rules
Right.
change next week, we can go back to a
Be
no.
a no.
But we need to move as fast as the rules allow us to move.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's my opinion. Okay.
That's it for us.
I was waiting to see
Oh,
if he was
sorry.
gonna come online, the Q was gonna give us direction there. But it looks like he's still muted.
yeah, I've asked him to set up a time to meet and talk about it, just so we could, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
yeah, and there might be options to open the fairgrounds and not open all the building, because for us, it'll be tough to coordinate the people in the courthouse.
Right.
I mean, to come into individual offices, that's easier, but to come into the courthouse could be much tougher.
There's not, once we open the doors,
It's the doors.
It's a free-for-all.
You're right, and who's monitoring the maximum capacity of the building if it's a restrict, like it is right now at 25% capacity?
Yeah,
What does that mean?
yeah. And then, well, that's actually changing too, because the new building code, and I don't know if the city adopted it, but it went from you needed 100 square foot per person in this kind of situation. Now it's 150. So that changes our occupancy loading by a lot.
So is that relevant to COVID only, or is that just
No,
relevant
that's-
to
It's
occupancy?
relative to COVID, because COVID
Right.
restricts your use to
Yeah.
25% of your occupancy. So if you need more space per person, that gives us less people in the building.
But when does that take effect?
Well, the building code came out in February, just came out. But whether the city has adopted it or not,
Right.
that's
Well, that's
the
like
question.
ours. We have to implement our update by June something.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I don't think it applies yet, but that
it could.
it could eventually.
But that's the new building code based on 18, had nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah.
It affects.
Right,
like
right,
that.
that's
But it
the-
affects it, yeah.
Square feet per person.
Wow.
is the new-
Well, because people
I
have
love
got bigger.
I guess, yeah.
We've all got bigger.
We need more space.
How does that work with the jail cell?
They're exempt.
Yeah.
It's okay there, there's no COVID in the jail.
Really? Have you been on a cruise ship before?
Yeah.
Have you been on an airplane?
Airplane.
They're all at 100% capacity.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you do have, someone's got their hand raised. I'm not sure if it's building director or someone else.
Oh, it must be
Lynn Ward.
Lynn Ward, is that you?
It is. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So the building should have been permitted under the 2015 code. And so the rules of the code that was in effect when it was permitted should be the ones that take precedence over the newly adopted ones.
Thank
Should be
you.
able to say- That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to get at. You can't retroactively.
Lynn finally has good news for us. It's awesome.
Thank
I
you.
know, finally, at least that's how the county does it. And I think the city's similar.
Well, that's what we're
Yes,
gonna
no,
say.
Yeah.
we need to have discussions with the prosecutor, whatever we need to
Right.
do to make sure we open on the day we're allowed to open everything. We need to know what's coming ahead of us and be preemptive of that.
Okay. Anything think, I had one thing before road right of way, as far as folks parking on the road right of way, I've had another complaint. It's the same one we've had before in Dallasport, and there's a car that parks on, it's not, it's not impeding traffic, it's not doing
Right.
anything, but it's just parked there. It's not in front of their property, it's in front of their neighbor's property, and it's bugs the neighbor, and it doesn't operate, it's not licensed, it's not right now, so and it's been sitting there, frankly, for like 3 years. I've driven by there. And they want to know, and in the past, it was licensed, and it's like, well, we don't really have, if you want to, nobody says you can only park in front of your property on the road, as long as you're off the road and you're not impeding traffic or anything. We don't defend those right of ways for that.
No, but if you're not licensed, we actually ask people and have asked them to move them
Okay.
or get them licensed. It's a mixed bag what people end up doing.
Okay, well, I will follow up with you offline then, and maybe we could see if we can encourage, or
Yeah.
if they can either move. I don't understand why they don't just move it in front of their property
Yeah,
on the other side of the road,
right.
especially unless it's just to bug these people. I don't know.
Well,
Because there's miles of nothing, and
There it is.
there it is, so,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I think that's it, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Madam, I always look forward to hearing this.
Didn't know your rules changed, so we've been hanging out in the hall since about 20 after. Otherwise, we'd have been in here.
No, you could come in, up to 12,
That's what Rob just told us.
yes.
Out the
Although
hallway.
apparently if the new code, it would be 8, since it's a 50%
Okay,
increase,
Thanks,
but
Lou.
we're not going. to
Betcha.
do that, so.
yeah. We're standing there, do.
What is the listed occupancy of this room? Anybody I know?
Well, it must be 4, because we're at 25, so it must be 50. Because we're 12 people is 25%.
That's true.
Just, guessing. Because I didn't know, I asked, that's what I asked Gordon when they changed the rule. Because we were at 5, it had nothing to do with the occupancy. It was that you could have no more than 5 people outside of your bubble.
Right.
And that's why we had 5 before. But then when we went to the 25% occupancy, it's like, well, what's that number?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm
Good
sure there'll
morning.
probably be questions, and I have a few editorial comments that aren't written down.
Okay.
February election was certified, all 4 school districts, their propositions passed, they're approved, so that was good. We probably had, I don't know, we didn't have that many rejected ballots either, did we?
No, very.
Very few, yeah, which was good. Most of them were, people didn't return theirs, or it was late postmarks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like,
I think we had, I'm not gonna.
that was like
say.
5 or 6, that was.
Yeah, it was minimal. So we're gonna have an April 27th special election for the Glenwood Fire District. Number 8, normally we've been outsourcing our elections, but for this one, there's under 360 voters. We're just gonna do it in-house. There's no sense in paying a bunch of extra money for someone to do something we're equipped to do and did for years. So we ordered a larger drop box for over here, wherever it's gonna end up landing. So that has arrived, and Gordy's crew will be relocating the one from here out to Centerville at some point. I was hoping to put it by the postal boxes. Gordy was going to check into if it's county right away or belongs to the Grange or whatever. I don't know what the status of that is, but that's the plan. We're having to, during the general, we're emptying it 2 to 3 times a day. So, of course, we had an unusually high voter turnout. The box ran about $3,377 with tax. So we'll see once I pay Public Works to put it in, it's gonna jump right over the $5,000 mark and relocate the other one, just saying. We're progressing with work on the 2020 annual report. Our Schedule 1516, which is our state federal grant accountability reports, are due to the office on the 12th. We've gotten juvenile, and then Jen got the CARES Act into us, the big one. So waiting for the rest, including my own. We had a little maker issue, which isn't on there. We had a computer upgrade and swap out, and my office, we didn't notice it, that the Micker font default got changed. So all of last week's bills were sent out. We had to call every vendor and tell them to please return the check. The new one was coming in the mail. So we had a little bit of a scramble getting that corrected with IT and that. So if you hear any complaints, that's what's going on. I contacted the bank over here and let them know, and silly me assumed that they would communicate with the White Salmon branch, and that did not happen. So on Monday, I got a call from the White Salmon branch. Yeah, it was Monday or yesterday. No, it was Friday. Anyway, but we've got that resolved. They cashed 3 of them and then had to have the customers come back and give them the money back. That wasn't very, that's what I was trying to, not have happen. So I learned from that. Don't assume bank managers are going to communicate. And of course, those are people that we left messages on the phone for. So I don't know if they just didn't get the message or what happened. Licensing, we're still struggling with remote assistance to people. We're 2 to 3 weeks behind in title work because of the extra work it's creating for us. Overall, nothing new in that department. Same old stuff, just, people not happy that we're not Johnny on the spot because we had a great reputation of getting things out pretty much right away. Renewals and that are going out, titling maybe a day or 2 later, but Treasurer's office has begun with their the e-processing for the real estate documents. Anything prior that had real estate involved could not be electronically recorded. The exception is the assessor's classification of current use program items. It's been very helpful for our title companies, in particular during our remote status that we're in. Other than this, still remote service to everybody else, and it's challenging. Marriage licenses, all of that has just been special. Veterans, there's been no changes really. Still continues to serve the veterans in Goldendale and White Salmon 4 days a week. And the last report, his October through December, was a 71% success rate on his claims that he filed. So anyway.
How does that success rate fare? I mean, that seems
Yeah,
like a
it's,
reasonably good.
he's got it up, but part of it is before it was fairly low, if you remember, Dave, and that was because he's learned it. I won't say learned, that's not right. He's
Adapted.
Yeah, well, he may have put too much information in the claim when it was filed, and then they'd reject it, then he'd fix it, and then it'd get approved, and so that lowered
All
the,
counted
yeah.
against the
Yeah,
success rate.
it lowered his percentage rate for success, although he's been getting major back benefits for veterans. Ever so often when he's in Goldendale, he comes through doing the happy dance and the hoo-hoos and okay, what's the dollar amount today, Bill?
That's good.
Yeah, so, yeah, and Public Works is gonna be a little bit behind in getting us our information for the annual report, but Gordy sent me a tentative schedule, and Susan's, one of the deadlines was March 1st, and she has met that so far, so that's good news. We just have to get it all in. March 15th is way better than May 1st. So that's what I have to say. I'm pleased with that. So as long as we continue down that path, that's awesome. And I'm very appreciative of that. Teresa's appreciative of that. And so anyway. Anything else? Any questions?
Questions for the
Anybody? No, none? Wow, I got off easy today. Let me, let's see. All righty.
Public Works tired about for you.
Yeah, I should mention too, that the financial steering committee met yesterday for the first time since 19, and we'll be meeting again on the 15th, and we all have homework, and hopefully we'll be going down the road for looking at replacing Kayenta. But yeah, that's something that has to happen.
That was on my list, is to get the official, what was that about, but and I forgot to write it down, so glad you
Yeah.
mentioned it.
Yeah, and then the finance committee meeting is this Friday. So, okay? All right. See you
Now,
later.
clarification, when you do your little finance meeting, I can zoom in as long as I don't say anything, right?
You should be able to.
Yeah, I don't know where Greg has the official link to join, so,
Well, that's the other, I would hunt it down.
yeah, well, it should be fairly easy for people to find. I'm not sure that it is. though.
Right. Oh,
Well, you guys look all bright, detailed.
my head's out of the game today for some reason.
Parametric pressure.
It's something, I'm like zombie mode today.
So, good morning.
Good morning.
So for my department in general, we're still working on the management plan. The comments finally came back from ecology on our crop, which is our contamination reduction outreach plan. So there's a couple of things in there that have to be amended, and then it'll go through that process again, and then we'll be ready to have it published and on the shelf to collect dust. The other thing too is that with our crop, we only had 2 out of the 5 components that are necessary for a crop. We only had 2 places where we actually had to kind of amend a little bit. So that's pretty impressive considering the fact that we were like one of the first ones to get our crop done. So I'm like, woohoo on that one. That one's pretty great. The resolutions I will have done at the end of the month and on your table to sign for the beginning of April. And then I did my first update with Golden Dale last night, and I'm doing my second updates with Benjamin White Salmon this week as well. So that's going pretty good. Just getting it out there that, we can work together and, share information. I think it'll definitely make our programs a lot stronger if we have that going on. So with the litter crew program, Dawn is out there doing litter cleanup now with the adult and juvenile probation. Ecology is going to send somebody down to actually train him on some youth programs and how to do the state highways and things like that. However, they got to wait for the different phases to go through Yakima. So it still might be another month or so. He is going to be very involved with the Secure Your Load campaign that we got coming up. He's also going to be helping with the community cleanup program over there in Benjamin White Salmon. He's going to help Joe with paint and MRW stuff. So the recycling program, Michelle's been working with a lot of the communities, including the businesses and stuff, to get more involvement in our programs. She's been very active working with the different chambers, mostly Mount Adams Chamber and the Rotary Club over there in Benjamin White Salmon. So she did give a presentation to the Rotary Club yesterday about who we are, what we're doing, and where we would like to go, like what kind of programs we've had and will have. So we're not really quite sure why Golden Dale doesn't have a strong Rotary, but we would like to try to encourage some volunteer programs over here in Golden Dale as well, to make it nice and strong.
Do you have any idea what your recycling rates are for this side of the county versus that side of the county?
We do. We did an audit. It's in our crop, in our management plan on our webpage. So we did collect data from that, and we'll be collecting more data for spring and summer, and have it kind of separated out between that side and this side, just because there's different populations and different demographics that kind of.
That's why it was making it, I was curious.
Yeah, so there's data in there. The volunteer programs, community-based programs, we're trying to really push for 2021 to get them involved, to try to help with some of that outreach and education. We figure it's bigger bang for our buck if we can get other people involved, you know, and some of that outreach. So, and then our new grant cycle is starting this year, 21 to 23. We submitted our paperwork for our litter crew, our litter program grant, so that paperwork's in. We're still waiting for the SWIFA and a couple other grant possibilities to come out so that we can submit our applications for those. Let's see, for Republic Services, we are currently having some discussions about changing the structure of Chapter 12, which is the host fee. So I kind of wanted to get that in front of you guys to let you know that, you know, those are talks that will probably continue to be needed moving forward. So I'm not really quite sure what that looks like. I was thinking maybe I should try to set up some kind of a timeline and some kind of a map on how to get there. But right now I'm still kind of doing some research on how they managed to do it last time. So, you know, some of the changes to the contract. But yeah, so that's before you. And then last with Republic Services, I had a conversation with Don and Stephen, Don Tibbetts and Stephen Gilmore, and they would like to present an award to Jim Sizemore and Rex Johnson for, you know, all of their years of building that relationship and continuing that relationship, and to just award them on their service for while they were on the board. And they would like to do that during the quarterly update, which is in April. So hopefully we don't get shut back down and they can be here to do that. So I can, if you want, I can reach out to Rex and Jim to make sure that they'd be available for that, or one of you guys. Like, I don't know how to go about doing that. So
I would just say from a historical perspective, that's common as far as they've done that with all the, since I've been here, when a commissioner retires, they have some, this was kind of an odd year because of COVID.
Right.
There wasn't, traditionally it would have been done, you know, in December.
right.
But
Do you want me to reach out to them, or
I don't,
to Jim and to Rex? I think I still have their numbers.
yeah. I mean,
Well, if you
I'm
don't,
okay with
I
it.
do.
Okay, good.
Sounds like-
Because I might only have
Sounds
to
like the
work on it.
correct way to go about it would be yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be,
Cool. All right. Then I will definitely get that done sooner rather than later. And then
I'll be curious what their parting gift is. but-
gold watch.
Well, I can't
I know,
Can't tell
it's
you.
like it's a secret apparently.
Yeah, it's not for public consumption.
Okay.
So,
I guess I'll find out what everybody else finds out.
exactly.
Okay.
So
Everyone
for
have their
the
little secrets.
budget update, tonnage for January was up by almost 31 tons compared to last January. So,
31,000
or
tons.
31. It was close to 31 tons. It was actually 30,000. Well, 30,800 and something.
Yeah. So it's 1,000. You have it here. It's just 31 tons.
Oh, yeah. Well.
That's not a big deal. That's, you know, $120.
Yeah, no. Sorry about that. And then on my legislative update, I'm just kind of gonna just gloss over the bills that are still alive that we're Waxwim are still kind of working with, and that is the carryout bags. We're kind of working on delaying those restrictions. There's also enhanced litter control legislation that's going on that we're gonna that's really going to hit hard. It's going to hit our programs, not hard in an economic sense, but we're going to hit the ground running trying to get those programs stronger. And then the food service ware, the Washington Climate Commitment Act, which is the big one, and the recycling of wind turbine blades and industrial symbiosis. So I put those on there because those are really important. They are going to impact us somewhat, and it's a good idea to at least inform you guys that these are still alive and moving through. So anyway, that's it.
I have a
That's all I got.
question on your litter pickup. How do you have a program or an outreach or a number or a link on your website or anything like that? That if residents see their street or whatever full of trash and they want to put it on the list, there's a way to put it on the list? Or should they, call you directly, or how do you do that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways. I did want to get something on our webpage last year, a year and a half ago, that would allow people to actually fill out a form, and then it would send it out. We do have a little red button on our webpage that they can actually fill out if they want to. It's more of a complaint or a update kind of a thing, like for transfer stations or whatever, but they can use it for litter as well. And then I've had people call in and inform us of places that are heavily littered, and we've been out there like the next day to go take care of it. So I would say that the quickest result would be either the red button on our webpage or calling me directly.
Well, you might get a phone call directly then. I noticed that as I'm driving to work today, I'm like, wow, you can definitely tell. So litter pickup crews had COVID for the last year.
Yeah, well,
All
litter
the
dumps.
feed bags are littered along the side of the road the whole way.
Illegal dumps are really big, and those are the ones that we really we respond to very quickly. Litter pickup is rather.
When you guys go through an
restricted,
illegal dump, do you guys, I guess I'd say sift it, looking for letters with somebody's personal
Oh,
address
yeah,
on them or anything?
we get all of the personal information, and then depending
Report it to
upon
Bob.
whether we're on that side of the county or this side of the county, we will let law enforcement know,
Okay, good.
and then they take care of it. Unfortunately, on this last illegal dump from a couple weeks ago, there were pictures taken, but they weren't good enough to actually see the name on the pill bottles, so we weren't able to really call that one in and have it taken care of. But people do receive tickets, they do receive letters and contact with law enforcement. So,
Good.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else for Miss Ruby? I guess not.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the update.
I asked my share that question.
Yeah,
All right.
it's quiet today.
It is
It does
quiet,
happen sometimes.
which is really bad because, then you want to nap and.
Yeah,
Not a lot of excitement in the trash.
in the trash business right now.
We're done with
Well,
our
there's
trash.
actually a lot of exciting things. It's just kind of slow to kind of take off.
I was surprised that litter pickup was even functioning. I didn't know that they were out and about yet.
He's really new. He's been out there cleaning now for maybe a week or so. Still trying to get his feet wet, try to figure it out. And there are rules that require us to only clean certain roads a certain number of times. So he's still,
How is that? Is that like state rules or is that
Yeah.
little?
yeah, it's state rules and our grants. We have to conform to grant requirements, and so there's only some places that we can only clean so many times, like the way up to the transfer stations, like we can't just continuously clean that up. We wouldn't be able to use the grant to pay for that.
Right, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay for.
Well, if we just get people to secure their loads, it wouldn't be that big of a problem. I am having him actually do some counts at the transfer stations. So far, he's only been able to do Goldendale, but when he was at Goldendale here a couple of weeks ago doing a unsecured load count, he said that there were, I'm gonna have to look at my email now, but out of 70 people that showed up, there were only like 2 that had secured loads. So I think that's kind of excessive, but I did ask him to please start making sure that it was all written down, so he does tick marks and stuff when he shows up, and a time frame of when that happens, so that we can actually compare apples to apples, at the other transfer stations. And but that was,
Say, I don't tarp my load, but there's none blowing out of it. so.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's
I
still, it's law, it's the law.
Yeah.
If a piece of paper, a small piece of paper can blow out the back end of it, then it's not quite secure. But we're just now starting to get law enforcement and judges and stuff back on the right track with the interpretation of that law. So you'll see a lot of stuff coming down the pike this year, I think. I think people forgot that it was against the law to not secure your load. But a lot of the trash and stuff that we have in the county is associated with unsecured loads. So,
Okay,
all right,
Thank you.
you know where to find me if you need anything.
right.
I don't know that I've ever seen trash blow out of somebody's truck, but I've definitely seen trash blow out of the recycling, or the Republic truck.
I think anybody wants to, we're through our morning agenda, but we got a few minutes. Hold on, I'm fine with breaking a little early. I have some other work to do, but it's only 11:15. Okay. If not, then we will adjourn until for lunch. We will be back at 1 o'clock for folks on the Zoom or the phone. So have a good lunch break. Out.
iPad is about to die.
Oh. Okay, you can see everything. I think we're on and
I
going.
might have a couple of those on here. Only a couple.
Okay. It's now 1 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Let the record show that all three commissioners are present. We will start with our opening pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the business agenda with one add-on under unfinished business. The request for verbal authorization to carry over the 2020 balance of the Emergency Operations Center funding for 2021 COVID-19 related expenditures, which will be required in a supplemental budget.
Well, second motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the business agenda with one add-on. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, motion passed. Brings us to commissioner meeting
You want
minutes.
both at the same, or you want them separate?
We can take them together.
You can.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the commissioners meeting minutes for February 9th, 2021 and February 16th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the two sets of meeting minutes. Any discussion on those?
Just a quickie, you were the last one to look at, I believe it was the 9th. Did you make any changes?
The only thing was just a typo.
Okay, yeah,
Nothing substantive.
okay, good enough.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Which brings us to citizen comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the Board of Commissioners. Comments will be limited to no more than 7 minutes. If you wish to address the board, I will recognize Commissioner Christopher first, actually. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say during the solar tour that we had last week, it was at the chairman's discretion to allow the public to speak. He didn't have to, and the plan was not to, but I want to personally thank him for allowing the public to ask questions. I think it was very informative to get their questions answered as well. So I just wanted to go on the record and thank you for that, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was really an informative tour, and I'm sure there was lots more questions that would have been asked.
They asked some questions that we didn't ask
Right.
that I would have regretted and wished I asked later. So it worked out really well.
I would agree. Okay, so now we are in citizen comments. So if there's a citizen on the Zoom call or Zoom meeting or on a call that want to address the board, just either raise your hand or unmute yourself. You need to tell us your name and where you live. And okay, yeah, Zach has your hand up. We'll go with you first, sir.
Thank you. My name is Zachary Schaumler. I live in White Salmon, or unincorporated White Salmon, rather, unincorporated Klickitat County, right outside White Salmon. And I just wanted to inquire and talk to you guys a little bit about establishing a dog control zone for unincorporated, the greater White Salmon urban area, unincorporated Klickitat County. My kind of problem here started with I have a neighbor that has a dog that is kept in a very small confined yard and barks pretty much all day long, every day, as long as when they're not home. We've spent years trying to work it out with this neighbor and just come to no resolution. Now they've stopped, been non-communicative. I've worked with the sheriff's department. They've been very kind and very helpful, but and in talking to them, and I spoke with an officer, Kaylee, last night, who was very kind and very helpful. Essentially, their hands are tied because there is no dog control zone for that area. And the laws that govern that part of unincorporated Klickitat County are built for agriculture and not for a medium density suburban neighborhood, which it is. So my understanding of the process to establish this zone is that you need a petition of 50% of the landowners in the area, which is a pretty high order for a single person to do, since that's several hundred landowners out of 600 landowners. So I'm wondering if the board has any advice for me, any thoughts, if there's a different process that can be gone through. And I do want to say thank you very much, Commissioner Anderson, for getting back to me today. That was super awesome. That was so quick. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Did you have any response that you wanted?
I think it's gonna be a question for Q is that, I looked at that dog. I mean, it's an old ordinance.
Looked at it past.
And, that it might be a tall order for an individual to go through. My question is, can we as commissioners go through the legislative process to establish it without having to go through that whole process?
Right. Okay.
And I think that's a question for the prosecutor.
Okay. So you're gonna look into that and let us know later. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll get back to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Okay, we are still in public comment. Other citizens? Russ's phone is unmuted.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Russ Hanson at number 10 Tucker Hill Road, tour last week. My wife and I attended. We found it very informative and also very disturbing. They answered a lot of good questions for us. We found it kind of disturbing to realize just how big these things are and that our property is going to be surrounded on potentially 3 sides. We were both impressed with Crook County's ordinances and the extent that they go to on those, and I just hope that our commissioners will follow up on something similar with that. And I'd also like to just encourage a field trip day that maybe planning department and the commissioners could get out here and see some of the residents out here in our property, exactly what we're talking about with these solar panels, so give you a little better idea of what we're up against here. But anyway, I just want to thank you again for your time and your work on this.
Thank you, sir. Still in citizen comment. I see Greg's phone is unmuted, or
I have a 7211 that's been unmuted.
oh, sorry.
Too.
Okay, go ahead, Greg. Mr. Wagner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioner. Greg Wagner, 303 Fish Hatchery, Goldendale. Klickitat County Commissioners Anderson and Sauter will not answer questions from Cs or citizens concerning solar issues. You will not hold public meetings to discuss the solar issues. You will not respond to our emails. I asked 5 questions 4 weeks ago concerning Lund Hill, and have not received an answer. You answer the solar company's questions and continue to work with the solar companies. You are more concerned about the needs of the solar than us. This is not a democracy, it's more like a dictatorship. CEAS has had to resort to personal record requests to receive documents that might answer our questions. We can only trust the commissioners to give us all the records. The commissioners have missed the deadline and are late in responding. What are you hiding? This isn't the way honest leaders behave. Since December 2020, CEAS has asked for a moratorium to halt any solar projects until the ordinances can be created. You will not enact one to protect the citizens. On October 15, 2013, Chairman Mr. Sauter enacted a moratorium on siting of commercial marijuana in the county. He stated, "We aren't ready, and enacting a moratorium was the prudent thing to do, give the county more time to consider the effects on land use and take steps to mitigate them." Do you remember saying this in the Columbia Gorge newspaper interview, Mr. Sauter? Klickitat County land use ordinances did not contain regulations for marijuana activities. We have the same problem with no land use regulations for solar. Mr. Sauter determined a moratorium was needed for marijuana use. Why aren't you enacting a moratorium for a much bigger solar issue? Solar is and will continue to have major impact on the citizens of our county, but you will not take the prudent action to enact a moratorium. Does big money solar control your decision-making process? When will you do your job and protect the citizens? When will you notify every citizen about the solar issue? You say you want to hear from everyone when you hold public meetings. When you held the closed solar meeting January 14th, no citizen could speak, but Brian Walsh from Avangrid Solar Corporation was allowed to speak. More favoritism for big solar. You have taken a position on solar, Mr. Sauter. You have known about the 3 solar companies' plans west of Goldendale for years, but never told one citizen. You've kept this a secret to avoid opposition. This is not honest behavior. Will this continue? This shows you do not care about the citizens. During the solar tour last week, we saw Oregon County leaders who care about their citizens. Before industrial solar farms came into their county, they created a 10-page solar ordinance. To achieve this, they held public meetings to hear what concerned the citizens, and their ordinances reflected their citizens' concern. This is true leadership, something our county lacks. Their commissioners will not allow industrial-scale solar farms on prime farmland and will not allow it to surround citizens' homes. Why don't you do the same thing? Our citizens are not being represented by the commissioners. We would like that. Thank you very much.
Right, well, this is citizen comment, so you are entitled to your comment, even if I feel like, well, there's a lot of misinformation in that comment, but I'll let it go. We're still in citizen comment, so if someone else wants to comment, they can unmute themselves or raise their hand in.
I see a lot of new names on here that haven't been on before. Do any of your new people want to comment about
I
something?
think Amy has unmuted. There's, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I am Amy Murphy. I live at 26 Howell Road in White Salmon, Washington. And I'm actually a member of Labor's Local 335. And I just needed to say that I support the solar project at Lund Hill. That's an opportunity. It creates jobs. And I've actually worked up there for a brief period of time and hope to, in the future, go back there and do more work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bruce
you.
Barnes has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Barnes.
Thank
Oh, thank you.
Is she done, sir?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, my name is Bruce Barnes. I'm a resident of Vancouver, Washington, but part owner in a property in Bickleton, Washington. And the reason I'm coming to your commission today, and by the way, thanks for allowing the public comment. I'm here to talk about pedal assist bicycles on public land in Klickitat County. And I had my friend and I put a packet together and sent to Lee, and she should have, I'm sure she forwarded the information about pedal assist bicycles to you commissioners today.
Yes, she did.
Anyways, what I'm asking for is for Klickitat County to allow Class 1 and Class 3 pedal assist bicycles in your community. And if you looked at the state law, the Class 1 and Class 3, they're allowed in state parks. They're allowed in BLM land. They're allowed in Forest Service land, or Forest Service land, BLM land, and state parks. And the state law considers these bicycles non-motorized. And in your county, I'm not sure if you have noticed, the Department of Natural Resources is turning a lot of your property into NAPs, natural areas of process. And your community needs jobs. Your community needs people that want to spend money in your community, in hotels, food, gasoline, all those things. And this is what recreation brings to your community. And I would even bring a couple of my e-bikes out. And there's a gentleman that owns Tri-Mountain Archery that is actually a Baku e-bike dealer that I've met through this whole process. I've been working on this for about a year and 6 months time since the first time I was kind of accosted by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife for riding my pedal assist bicycle. And I said, look, I read all the rules. I'm not breaking any rules. What is the problem? So we had it resolved, and then it is come up again. So we've gone through the legislative process this year as well. And I'm just going county to county with friends of mine that are also e-bikers and hunters that want to get back onto their public lands that we all own, Department of Natural Resources and Fish and Wildlife lands. There's no harm in these bicycles. They don't do any harm to the ground. People just want to ride these bicycles and go back in the backcountry and either hunt or just enjoy the recreation of just being out in the wilderness. And that's what my ask is today, is for you guys to take a objective look at these bicycles and just go, is there really any harm in riding these bicycles where bicycles are allowed? That's my ask. And I'm not sure if any of you got a chance to look at this, or any of you ride e-bikes. Please ask me some questions if you have some.
Thanks, sir. No, for my seatmates, I did talk to Barbara with Rails to Trails to ask her opinion on that, and she was not opposed to them. She thinks there could be issues down the road with going fast or whatever. I also plan to reach out to Morgan with Tri-Mountain Archery. So hopefully I'll have some information to bring forth to you at a future date for discussion of this topic.
Okay. Will you guys contact me through email or call me, or how would that work?
If we have questions for you, we would reach out and contact you directly. But if we just decided to make our own motion here to make our own ordinance, we may reach out, we may not. You would need to keep in touch with us if that's the route you want to go with it.
Yeah, like I said, I just think that it would bring recreation to your communities. And like I said, the public lands should be kept public for the public. And like I said, there's no harm in riding your bicycle out in the woods. I mean, people just want to go out and enjoy their outdoor activities, you know?
Right. I just want to touch base with all the user groups, all the various user groups, to get their input as well before, and then I'll make a presentation to my seatmates and see where they want to go.
Okay, and in closing, I would like to let you know that the CDC has reviewed these bicycles and deemed them no more dangerous than a regular bicycle. These bicycles go 20 miles an hour. A Class 2 bicycle can go up to 28 miles an hour. But I'd like you to know that a horse that weighs up to 1,200 pounds can run 54 miles an hour. So those are just some things I'd like to say in closing. And like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak today. And I hope you gentlemen and ladies have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
I am seeing Deacon, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Deacon Letnich, I'm a representative for Labor's Local 335. And on behalf of my fellow member, Amy Murphy, and two retired electricians, in Greg and Bruce, I would just like to, again, publicly state our support for the Sand Hill Solar Project. It's a great opportunity for jobs, wages, benefits in the Klickitat County area, and especially a way to have those hours that feed into all of our pensions. I see it as a win-win for the area as far as green energy and local jobs and money into the local economy. And I would like to thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let me scroll through somebody else.
I would like to speak.
Bonnie and Dennis White.
Okay, go ahead.
Roseville Dimick, 55 Tucker Hill Road. I'd like to address all of the union workers who are soliciting for jobs. I didn't see any of them at the gala, which is unfortunate. If I were in these positions, I would definitely, if I was soliciting union work, I would go to the source, and I would highly recommend them reaching out to our website, cease2020.org. On there, you'll find some proposals for solar plans in our area. We'll give you links to those names that you can contact so that you can solicit jobs more effectively. But since you weren't at the gala, you would have learned that there's only 2 full-time jobs that exist in these facilities. And so that I just wanted to put that out there. If they wanted to be more effective, instead of calling every week to try to solicit jobs, they might have a better opportunity. Because I believe there's about 25 other solar projects throughout the state of Washington. So if they truly believe that they are for achieving these jobs, then they need to seek out the right people. In addition, I wanted to point out some facts that I had come up with when I attended the gala. One being that Crook County only uses that land that has soil tested 6, 7, and 8, and not in areas of potential growth. And that seems to me to be the most detrimental thing that is going on here, is that these projects are being proposed in areas that are designated for potential growth, which I feel could hurt our economy in Goldendale later on down the road. In our county, we have 2/3 of the county is permitted outright, regardless of its soil type. And that could be thousands more acres with the leased land that could exist outside the EOZ. Crook County, only one facility has a resident 3 miles from its nearest facility. And just the Knight area alone in Klickitat County, there's going to be 50 residents that are going to be affected. In Crook County, they hold public meetings. In Klickitat County, we hold public hearings. So meetings versus hearings, those are totally different issues. And their planning director seems to be working really closely with these developments and offering a checks and balances, where it would appear in our county, there's not even a final plan available for Lund Hill. So we are really unaware of, what is, our plans regarding emergency management and flooding. All of those are in the FEIS as basically to be determined methodologies. And that seems a little bit bothersome for, residents who are wanting to find out more information on how these projects are going to affect their properties. And lastly, they have a comprehensive plan that is, detailed and addresses their emergency management, flooding, road access, and they have 10 pages of ordinances. And in Klickitat County, our comprehensive plan is so old, I can't even find it on the website for one. And they have maps that are literally colored in with colored pencils. So old. We need to update these comprehensive plans to be relevant to the projects that are being proposed in our area. And then lastly, the biggest thing that I took from that tour was the transparency that Crook County offers to its residents. And where our county, we have to summon public records from our planning department, our commissioners, just to find out about these proposals in our county. And I feel like that is the biggest problem that we have, and the differences between Crook County and Klickitat County is their transparency is much better than ours. Anyways, I hope that you took some good information from those tours, and you considered, what that might be like in our county, the enormity of these projects. And I thank you for taking that time, and I hope that we get the same opportunity to present to you as well. And thanks for hearing my comment today.
Thank you. Let's see, Bonnie and Dennis White, you're unmuted.
Yeah, good afternoon. Dennis White, Houston, Washington. I'm wondering about the Stevenson family asset liquidation, specifically their mill operation and their forest land. I'm wondering, has the board had any discussions with anyone over how the outcome of this liquidation may, may better benefit the community and the environment? Or is it just going to be an auction and whatever happens, happens, and we have speculative development interest carrying the day? Is there anything we can do? Have you had any discussions with anyone about what we can do to preserve the jobs and preserve the timberlands that's so important for the environment and those jobs? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. I can't really speak for the board. I can only speak for myself in that I have had conversations with economic development folks, natural resources folks, because it is of great concern to me. The potential loss of that productive forest land, and I have concerns about about its conversion to non-forestry use. But I don't know that at this point it's private land, it's a private company, and they can certainly do as they see fit as far as the public stance is that they are looking for acquisition by a company or companies that would continue the operations as they are, but that remains to be seen.
Well, have you made your have you made your opinions known to the players in this game?
Yeah, I certainly I've had direct communication with some of the players, yes.
How about the state? What role could the state play here?
I'm not going to get into a give and take. This is citizen comment, so I don't want to. I'd be happy to talk to you offline sometime.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we just have a lot of concern over here in the White Salmon area that the outcome of that could be good or it could be disastrous, and so I just think it behooves all of us to work to have a good outcome for that. Thanks.
Agreed. Okay, we are still in citizen comment for 5 more minutes.
So we got 5 minutes and a lot of names I see on here that haven't been on before.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody wants to make a comment, either raise your hand, unmute yourself.
Could be about anything you want to talk about.
Yes.
Just got to have the courage to unmute it.
A lot of phone numbers, yeah.
You got one.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Yes. Go ahead.
This is Sherry Bosque, 120 Houston Street, Houston, Washington. And last week I had asked a question just out of confusion of what I've been hearing in meetings and moving forward with the county. I've heard some more this afternoon regarding the solar ordinances. And when I asked the question, I was told that in citizen comment, it's not the time to ask a question. So which that leads me to this question, and I apologize. But how does a citizen go about making an appropriate request of questioning procedures, ordinances, so on and so forth of the Board of County Commissioners? What would you suggest to me would be my appropriate procedure to address questions?
I don't think this is not appropriate. I think citizen comment is perfectly appropriate. I think that the issue we get into is that quite often when citizens call in or they want to have a give and take and basically get an answer in real time on the spot. That's really challenging in anything other than, pretty simple stuff, is because we don't necessarily, plus if the board hasn't had a discussion about it as a board, I can't really speak to what the board's position is on any given topic. Again, it's perfectly appropriate for you to raise the issue. Really probably as effective or more effective would be, you can send an email with, because then it's something that's in writing. We don't misunderstand what the comment that you're raising or the issue, the questions that you're asking. And we do try to get back, contrary to what you may hear, we generally try to get answers to people.
I would say, and I would go forth with that a little more, that 49 people online during citizen comment, we give 7 minutes apiece. That's not a whole lot of time for people to talk. So if we have a lot of back and forth conversation, we eat up all that time. We just prefer that you call or email so that we can save that time to other people that may not have the ability to call or email. So you can do it either way you want, but that's just kind of where I see it. I mean, back in the old days, across the room, and I was the only citizen at citizen comment. So 48, 49 people is pretty huge. All right.
Okay, so emailing probably would be the best procedure. And then would it be appropriate if I did get a response back to comment about a question and a response during citizen comment?
Sure, I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
It's your...
Okay, I just want to go about it the appropriate way and give everybody a fair chance to, have time to research questions. And I agree with that putting people on the spot and not having time to look into it in real time, it does propose some complications sometimes. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
I have a question.
Yes.
Since we have so many people online and we seem to be chewing through this 30 minutes really fast, is there any interest in my seatmates to push citizen comment an extra 15 minutes in the future until we no longer need it and then we can back it down again?
We can certainly talk.
I just keep that in mind because I hate to see people on the phone that I know who they are and I have a feeling why they called in, but they didn't get a talk because we're out of time.
The other thing we can always do is open citizen comment up at the end again. We talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, we would have to, the only thing that is,
the executive's gonna throw a wrench.
well, or the public hearings, public meeting, we have set times of
Right, you have
those.
those posted in the paper, so.
And so those are like hard times. If we knew we were gonna do that, we could move those. There's no state law that says all public bid openings and meeting, hearings must start at 1:30.
Oh, I thought we posted them in the paper for that, so
We are, so we do have to do it then.
Right. No.
Okay, we are out of citizen comment time.
Thanks,
I apologize. Yeah. Thank you all for checking in with us. As I said, the time is now 1:30, time we've set aside for public hearings, public meetings, and bid openings. We do have a public hearing scheduled now to review the final project performance of Washington Gorge Action Programs funded by the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. And at the hearing, any interested taxpayer may appear and be heard for or against said current use applications. I did see Leslie is on the call. Is she going to provide the staff? Okay, you're here in a supporting role.
I am.
Okay, that's good. Ms. Naramore, are you able to join us now?
I am here, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, is Erin in the room there?
He is in the room.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Erin.
She says she's supporting you.
Yes. Okay. So, sure. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of WAGAP activities that utilized CDBG dollars in the last year. And our CDBG dollars, they do run through Klickitat County, but they do cover Skamania County as well. So the numbers that I am going to be referring to are for Klickitat and Skamania counties. And our CDBG dollars are very important to us because they allow us to leverage other funding that we have throughout the 2-county area. And with our CDBG dollars, that's one funding source that I can truly say touches every program that WAGAP runs. And that's mainly through our housing programs, our food banks, and our youth center. And as I mentioned the last time I was here, in 2020, WAGAP did serve 8,572 clients. That's 4,006 households throughout the 2-county area. In 2020, we distributed 14,312 food boxes through our food banking system. We were the recipient of 7,566 volunteer hours, which is a number that we're pretty proud of because that's the community coming in and they believe in us and they're coming in to work with us. In a normal year, that number would be a lot higher, but because of COVID safety protocols, we couldn't have as many volunteers in as we normally do, but we still had a lot of people who came in and helped out. And the last number that I wanted to mention is in our housing programs, we were able to help 188 clients through our housing and our shelter programs. And then on top of that, in the last year, we were also the recipient of an ERAP grant, which is the Eviction Rental Assistance Program. And so far with that program, we have helped an additional 69 households throughout Klickitat and Skamania counties. And then because again of COVID, the housing numbers are a bit lower than they normally would be. We don't have as many people moving around. And then there's also the eviction moratorium in place. So not as many people are coming into our programs because they've been evicted. Are there any questions from anyone regarding anything about CDBG?
Any questions for Leslie?
Great numbers though. Thank you, Leslie.
No, that's good. No, I think we're good. I would be remiss though, this is a public hearing, so I will open the hearing to receive any public testimony regarding the CDBG specific. So is there anybody from the public? Let me look at my screen. I don't see anybody. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. I will now close the public hearing to public comment on this application. Okay.
All right.
I think that concludes our hearing. That should meet the statutory requirements of the CDBG grant. So, all right, thank you, Leslie, for your great work. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, commissioners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Since we have a little bit of time, I'd like to address the comment about the public records request that you missed your deadline. Statute allows for those deadlines to be extended. I've got 2 requests right now that our office is working on. There are 2 employees in this office. We also have to take care of our other duties. The requester on the topic of solar has been very good to work with. And I didn't realize he was a ceased person. Doesn't matter. Our office tries to do our due diligence and search and make sure we meet those public records requests. And I did talk with the individual and we set a new deadline of the 11th. It's very disheartening because it takes hours. I'm searching 7 emails from January of 2017 to the present. And whatever records we have, I'm not finding a whole lot. And that's part of my dilemma, I think. It's like, I'm trying to find records to be able to send. And so we do our best to meet not only what the public requests are, but also what the statutes require us to do.
Right.
So
thank you.
In the statute, you have 5 days to respond when you get a public records request. Did you respond within those 5 days? Okay. So, and then you set a time when you thought you would have.
I gave him an initial deadline of 30 days.
Okay, and that was what you expected in order to be.
That's what was my goal. I've been
Right.
trying to do at least 2 hours a day for 30 days.
Okay.
And
And you're also holding it with the other, because the request was through other departments, so you're getting their information as well, that it's gonna get sent to you and you
the
compile.
planning
that, right?
department has already responded. I think they're more ahead.
Okay,
Their office is more focused on planning. Your office is a catch basin of everything. So I'm having to go through every email. So it does take time, but we will definitely complete our goal. I'm really gonna try. If I don't have everything done by the next deadline, which is the 11th, I'll send him an installment. The gentleman has been wonderful to work with. He's a very nice person. So I just wanted to address the comment.
I just
Our
wanted to
office
make-
responds.
I just wanted to make sure that the only statutorily required issue is the 5-day response. And then you can set a time when you expect it to be done.
Right.
But that has no bearing, it's when it gets done, because some of these requests can take months in order to process.
Years
all the
even.
information, or even years to process.
Correct.
Depending on how in-depth they want for how long.
That's
through
true.
how many.
Precisely.
That's true.
So when you ask difficult questions, that's gonna take a lot of homework, expect to take some time.
Yeah.
Actually, isn't it the non-specific questions that are just overly broad take even more time?
That's true.
But I think that the standard training is you try to get with the requester to narrow and really try to get to what information are you really looking for? Because it is, I mean, I'll just state for the record, the county takes public records requests very seriously. We do comply. We do, I think there is some confusion sometimes over what the rules mean exactly. The statutory requirement is that, yes, we respond within 5 days with an estimate of how long it will take. And then if we make a good faith effort to meet that, we are in compliance.
I do think us as a board needs to continue to have discussions on a public records officer. This is only gonna get bigger. This is only gonna get more, the more people that are signing on to this thing. It's not going away. It has to be addressed. Or we're neglecting our duty and putting too much emphasis on staff, taking away from their other duties if we don't eventually come up with a public records officer, at least part-time, half-time, shared resource, something.
Right. Well, you're not getting any argument from me.
I'll make a motion.
Well, no, but the reality, the motion's already, I mean, it's already on the, we're supposed to have one now. We couldn't, and then there's a budget implication of all this, as you said, this records request, you estimated it, 30 days at, 2 hours a day. You do that by the amount of staff time and what the cost of that is, there is a real financial impact. And again, the public has a right to that information, but we also have a right to, we have all these other operations that we are going on, and whatever that request is very important to that individual. We as a board though have to take the big picture, and it's like, if I have to lay staff off in other critical functions to provide public records requests, that's a discussion the board needs to have with the public about where do you want our resources going? And it's always a balancing act. It's not because we don't want to be transparent. We are transparent. Actually, you don't have to make a public records request. If you ask for the information, we'll just give it to you.
Our office does that
All
very
the time.
routinely.
Right, 95% to 99% of the information goes out without a public records request. It's like, you ask for it, we give it to you. It's the, it's the formal process is actually is more onerous. So that's, we are nearly back on schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have unfinished business next, the add-on. This is Emergency Management Director Jeff King, Fiscal Services. Request for verbal authorization to carry over the 2020 balance of the Emergency Operations Center funding that was approved pursuant to resolution 09820 dated June 30th, 2020 for the 2021 COVID-19 related expenditures. A supplemental budget request will be required to add the funding allocation to the 2021 budget, Fund 125. It is a budget in the amount of $23,600. I just read basically your request.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so moved. Actually, do you want, I mean, is there, I mean, I guess if the board has any questions about exactly what you're asking to do, this would be the opportunity.
This is not you're asking for more funds, you're just moving one from one calendar year to the next calendar year.
Correct, to carry over the budget allocation.
Right. Just clarification for anybody listening.
Right.
Excuse me, there's a number of things that didn't get put in this year's budget that we have the funds and the cash. So the supplemental budget will address this, and there's a number of other things COVID related in 125 that'll be addressed as well as this one. So the cash is there, we just need to get it into the budget document.
Got it.
And can you remind me, or maybe Jen, is any of this, because I know the cities contribute, is any of this the city's money?
No.
Okay. Shocking, yeah, no, okay, never mind.
Still 35 people on.
Now there'll be.
We lost
55.
one.
Yes, yes. No, the mayors will be calling me up.
The cities have agreed to do the cost share as originally intended.
Okay.
Continue that on.
This is the county's portion of the
Correct.
of the dollars that are left.
Until we determine what the cost share is that. we
They'll
get
pay their
reimbursed from.
proportionate share on top of that. Okay.
It says verbal authorization, so I didn't know if you wanted a motion or just.
Was this added to our consent?
No, this is an add-on for today for verbal authorization.
Right. So do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes.
That's all.
The boss says yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to carry over the 2020 balance and the emergency operations funding that was approved pursuant to resolution 09820 dated June 30th, 2020 for 2021 COVID-19 related expenses in the amount of $23,600, and that's going Fund 125.
I would second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to grant authorization to carry over the fund balance. All those, or discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Now to the fun one.
It's a long one.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for this one for a while.
really? Okay.
I haven't posted anything on Facebook.
Yeah, well, there's only 10 minutes allotted, although we've got almost 15 now. Okay, Human Resources and Admin Director Rob Van Cleve, review and discussion concerning the draft social media policy.
Approach the.
You may approach the bench, sir. I want that one.
You know what the 28-page one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you, wow, you really shortened it up.
The executive summary is.
Yeah.
No, that's, I realized when we made changes to the policy, we didn't change the bullet points on the disclaimer, so.
Oh, so this is would be the draft amended disclaimer.
So commissioners, early in January, there was a request to look into developing a social media policy and public records. Speaking of public records, the request initially was around potentially commissioners' accounts, but as we looked, we realized that across the organization, we have 20 to 23 existing social media accounts. And working with Rebecca and the PA's office and Jeff Rowe, we developed these policies, and then PA Cannell looked at it. And it went out to all the department heads. So we're bringing this back to you for basically reaction and next steps to see before we bring it to you potentially for adoption, if that's what you prefer.
When you gave it to the department heads with all of the 27 odd pages or whatever it is, did you get a lot of heat? Did you get a lot of pushback? Did you get a lot of?
They're still reading.
I said they probably didn't read it.
Actually, I didn't hear anything, so I thought, oh, maybe I didn't send it. No, but I did. Actually, Erin told me she thought it would help her department give some structure to the social media. Others read it and said,
well, and that's kind of the reason that they may not know the reason for it is really not so much a social media policy, but a metadata catching facilitation that would then help in our records requests, which would then again help the prosecutor greatly. So
looking past the adoption of the policy, should that be what the commissioners choose to do in the future? Rebecca and Jeff did look at some various software. I can't think of the name. Jeff's on vacation. I can't think of the name of the one that Jeff's kind of settled on, but it would provide public records retention for up to 25 different social media sites, and it's $6,000 to $7,000. A bigger issue that's not addressed here, or as big an issue that's not addressed here, is the public records retention for the text messages on the county cell phones. And so that software is closer to $20,000.
Good Lord.
Because you pay for the phone, each phone per year, each year, and but it's an issue that we need to address as well. That would come after this. This would be the next thing we would try to take a look at, and see what we can do. Cell phones are kind of
say technology has consequences, and our county has been very lucky so far.
So in terms of capturing and catching all that, right now, it's just when you're asked for records, everybody goes through it. You take a screenshot of the messages that revolve around that, and then you email it into whoever's running that public records request, right?
I can't really address it. I suspect so. Don't know how many public records requests we've got for these type of things. I've seen some in some departments where they did just what you said. They took screenshots and sent those in. I think Rebecca may be on the phone.
Yeah, Rebecca, I see you're on there. Could you answer? That's my understanding too, but
The problem lies that you didn't screenshot anything that was deleted.
Right.
That's where you kind of know a problem.
And Rebecca was very involved in developing this policy with Jeff, at least the initial couple of drafts. Yeah, so.
It has been done.
Okay, I see Rebecca has unmuted herself. Can you answer Commissioner Anderson's comment, I guess, as far as how we treat it now, as far as our records retention, if there's a request, a public records request for text messages on a county phone, how that's handled now? Or not?
Well, she's waiting to respond or trying to respond.
Oh, wait, I wonder, try stars, what is it, *69? She's unmuted.
She's
Okay.
talking, it's just not coming through.
Yeah.
Because you can see the waves, like she's trying to talk.
Yeah.
Is
Dave Quinnell's unmuted.
Okay.
If we get a request for a records request, if we get a records request where records are identified on text, the person's expected to search their phone and to provide the copies of those texts that we can turn over to the public records requester.
So it is just, you just do a screenshot of the text and then email them to whoever.
That's what we've been doing so far.
It seems problematic.
That's why we're having this discussion.
Well, I would say for $20,000, the difference between doing that and having something that's automatically kept and backed up, I think it would be easier for us to have in our social media, textually, an ordinance that says you're not allowed to delete text messages on your county-owned phone.
Yeah, do we have I just know as a matter, because I understand as far as public records, I never deleted a single message on my county phone ever, because I know that it potentially, and that, I think that's the issue, is if you've deleted something, how do you prove that the thing that you deleted was a non-responsive, it was not something that was ever going to be.
Well, where you could come into a problem with that and just forward thinking is if you look at your voicemail box, it only is allowed to store so many voicemails. And then you have to delete old ones to be able to get a new one. And it wouldn't show that somebody left you an email or left you a voicemail. If my request was, I want the name of everybody or the phone number of everybody that left Mr. Sauter a voice message in the last year, you couldn't provide it because you deleted them in order to get a new one. So you might clean up some of it, but you wouldn't clean up all of it by doing it that way.
Commissioner Anderson, that $20,000 was specific to the cell phones, not part of the social media. I haven't looked too much into the texting yet. Rebecca or PA Canal may know more about the phones. I know we're starting to centralize them in IT.
Commissioners, can you hear me?
There she goes.
Yes.
Hey.
Okay, sorry, I'm having technical difficulty.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
All right, so I'm not sure if we addressed Commissioner Anderson's question earlier regarding the text messages. Yes, at this point, we are screenshotting relevant text messages, and that is how we
lost her again.
Okay.
respond to requests if they're relevant.
Okay.
So for the social,
Thank you.
And I know we don't have much time for the social media policy, there is a lot to it. I've joked with Commissioner Christopher about that, but as we looked at other counties, we did look at other counties and this is and melded some of them, but pretty much across the board, the policies in order to cover everything, all aspects need to be this comprehensive. Part of it would be all of the existing social media accounts would have to go back and implement all of these changes to get current. So each department would have to assign somebody to do that. IT wouldn't be able to do that for them. That would be something that whoever manages their social media. I think we were surprised to see there was so many social media accounts. And
well, that's what I was wondering if you would get pushback because IT is going to need admin privileges to every one of them, and I didn't know that some of the departments would push back on giving admin control.
Well, see, I think well, this is where you. Yeah,
but I think if they know the ramifications, they might be a little more open.
Well, I think
there's an enterprise out there of just capitalizing on counties that aren't prepared like ours.
Well, and I don't have a Facebook account personally. So for some of the ones that some of these may be individual Facebook accounts that they use for their county one. It's my understanding some of the ones we have maybe they set up themselves, and so those folks would have to give up administrative rights to those or try and evolve it over to a county sponsor.
Or something. It'd be kind of like me and my personal, I'm not giving admin rights to my personal. I would set up a county, the personal one, I'm just not talking about county business. You want to talk about a goat or a pig, here you go. But other than that, go over to that one, and that's where the county business is.
Well, I just think it shows the evolution of social media. Our current policy is basically a paragraph. Yeah. And it has evolved to the point now where it takes this many pages to cover.
27 pages.
27 pages to cover.
And the public likes that transparency. They like the notifications from emergency management being set out. It is something we got to get on board with, whether we are personally social butterflies or not. So you know me, you have my permission for all of this, so.
What we would do, commissioners, if we would bring it back for formal adoption at a future meeting and we weren't asking for a decision today. I wanted to make sure that it was in line with what you were looking for, and knowing there will be a cost of some amount we'll have to address either through supplemental budget or if we wait till the second or third, sometimes there's money left over in the budget from, we didn't have to purchase something else, so we may be able to cover part of it or some of it. We would know that later in the year, but there would be a cost.
Do we have a line item now that we can do? Because I mean, my assumption is that, you know, we have a very limited policy now. We have, as you've, stated from your report, whatever you said, there's like 27 social media, or 23, 27,
I think, yeah.
23, whatever it is, social media accounts that are active as of today. It concerns me that we don't have an adopted policy with the the protections we need to be able to track stuff, that rather than wait for a supplemental, if we have some, I mean, to me, if we're gonna do it, I think I think the need is definitely there. We need to adopt this. I'm not saying, we have to go through the process as far as the draft, because I would like to hear back from departments, because my concern is, as he said, they haven't read it, or they're, that we.
Right, but we need to give them a timeline that
Right.
we're discussing this. If you want input, you have.
You gotta do it, because we gotta move on this, and that if there's a cost associated with it, we have to figure out where we're gonna fund that, not necessarily have to wait till the second or third quarter to implement it, that generally there's some line item in the budget that we can charge against it, that we can refill. That's an appropriate,
Yes, software line item.
software or something. Yeah, Commissioner.
Is that cell phone $20,000 number, is that this is the number? Did we check with one and not all?
Yeah, I don't know how many he checked with, and, but the one he was telling me about before he left was $100 to $125 per phone per year, $5,000 to $7,000 setup, and we're still trying to determine how many cell phones.
But that's true, and that's the cost, you're doing it for 300 plus cell phones.
Right, yeah, and I thought it's a big number.
I was gonna say, that's why I'm sitting here looking at 20,000 thinking that's crazy, but it's way more than 25 social media accounts. It's gonna be 300 cell phones.
I think.
Well, and maybe there's a discussion to be had about the need, does every single person need a county cell phone? Because because there could be that some people, yes, definitely.
You could be opening yourself up to those in the know, but those that out the know, they're gonna be wanting my phone or his phone or Jeff's phone. They're not gonna be, wanting the guy with the shovel.
They might.
They might. Well, that's what I'm saying. So you could limit risk or limit expense by removing some of those 300 phones, but you would also be adding risk, and it's just a matter of how much expense per risk the board wants to take. I just want to get it in place as soon as possible, because as soon as possible also limits risk.
Right. I guess the other thing is there's always a way around it. If deleting your cell phone, somebody could download Snapchat or something to their phone if they wanted to get around it. What we need a policy in place that says you're not allowed to delete your text messages, so that when we do get a public records request, and that's easy enough. If they don't follow policy, well, no, they're in hot water. Spending $100 per phone per year, I mean, do we not trust our guys with the shovel or our people for what we're looking at here? I mean, it's always risk.
As I said, I'm willing to have that discussion, and however you guys want to go on that one, it's fine with me.
Although I would say I agree with your statement, except, in a fair world, that's true. But I would do some checking, because even if we have an employee that we have a set policy that we tell them and they don't follow it, we're still liable.
We're still paying the
even
lawsuit.
if we told it, or
We
even
can
if they
fire
were
them.
disciplined.
Yeah, we could fire
There's
them
been
for
some, and that would be a question to the prosecuting attorney. There's been some really scary, I feel scary liability cases with local, with governments over where it makes no sense. Like, I have some employee that went off the rails and did something, and I'm liable for that. They were your employee, and you've got to, if you're a public entity, you've got to pay. So I don't know, that may be overstated, and I would defer to the prosecuting attorney.
If you're lucky, you get a $50,000 settlement. If you're not lucky, you get a $250,000 judgment.
I should mention this also, with the department has had it for, I think, over a week, maybe 10 days. And I did mention to them that it would be retroactive for those who had it. So, but yeah, bringing it to a formal adoption would give them another chance to comment. We haven't heard anything yet. And I sent it to the union. It does contain potential disciplinary issues, which makes it a bargainable issue with the unions. And they've had it for a couple of weeks, and I haven't heard anything back from the union. So pretty common for counties to have this policy, so it's not unusual for this from their perspective.
So you're going to bring an official something next time?
If that's what you direct me, I'll bring it back as an item to be adopted in the future. And we do have a line item, so we would start to get it set up and then deal with it through a supplemental budget, or if we needed to later down the road.
Jeff, did you read it?
Yes, sir, I did.
Is it something you think that it's not going to change fundamentally how you guys do what you're currently doing, that everybody really appreciates what you're doing with COVID?
It won't change our message on social media. It will change how we operate our accounts and the legal language that we have to include. And so I sent it out to my staff that manage our social media accounts, both for the department and for the DOC specifically, ask for their feedback. And I'm still working through that. But there'll be, it'll increase our workload. And how do we physically do this question? But the policy is sound in my estimation.
Thank you. See, at least one of them read it.
Yeah.
Good. The guy back there.
Good, get gold star today.
Okay.
How are you
Are you okay with
doing that?
Yeah, no, I'm all
on the
for
spot.
it.
Okay.
And I want to thank Rebecca and PA Cannell and Jeff for all their work.
Adding 23 of the 26 pages.
Yeah.
Now, come on now.
It was 24.
No, it was only 24.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Next, we have consent. Anybody have any issues with any of the consent item? Oh, wait a minute. Apparently we have issues. What's the, what is
One
it?
item was removed at the request of the planning department.
Oh, okay. Number 2.
There were 2 memos under one number.
Yeah, there was. I noticed that. I
Right.
didn't know
So
they
just
could
one
do
of them.
that.
I think the one ending in 07 was removed.
Okay.
Oh,
So it's a portion of number 2,
all right.
because they had lumped them
Are
together.
you ready, sir?
I am ready.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 10 items approving consent item number 2, SPL 2020-13, and removing SPL 2020-07.
Okay. No, I just wanted to read through that. Second motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Payments.
You got the box down there this time.
Yeah, oh, sorry. I was done with it. It should be, the sheet should be in there somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve accounts payable warrants in the amount of $297,971.86 and a payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $1,071,852.01 for the date ending March 1st, 2021.
We'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. Paid the bills. Treasurer Gallagher. Here with a financial and revenue update. Nothing but,
What's that?
nothing but sunshine and blue skies.
And rainbows and unicorns.
Good. Well, we're done then.
Yeah.
$10 million on his way down the stairs.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have that much today, but we'll go through my list. So I'm here in our normal schedule. Had a finance committee meeting on Friday. My main thing is wanting to report back as to how that went. That went very well. We had our main discussion point that we talked about was the furthering the conversation that we had the previous week about budget or discussing budgets and workshops and going through the more detailed parts of the budget up front. We came up with a game plan of how we are hoping to schedule and go through that as the group, because we all felt we all have different pieces. Brenda has some parts, I have some parts, Jen had some parts, and so we kind of talked about how we were going to do that. We will be working up a schedule. We thought we would start with the landfill allocation. We've talked about that briefly. Then we will talk about transfers. Then we will go through kind of an overview of all of the funds so that we can just kind of go through. We're working on a summary of each fund, kind of what it's for, how it came about, what its minimum balance might be, whether it's restricted, whether it's not, and go through that. And then we thought we would start to go through some of the groups of funds as we go through. Obviously, this is something we all agree is not going to take one meeting and we'll be done and it will just wave the magic wand and we'll all through osmosis walk away. So
fully understand.
Yeah, we talked about starting on March 18th. And I haven't gotten with Lee yet, so I hope she doesn't fall over wherever she went to. But yes, tipped over. But we're gonna work on trying to get some, we all agreed that it would probably be better to have them more first thing in the morning, like, 9 or 9:30 to noon. So that we would be fresh and we would go through for about 3 to 3.5 hours or thereabouts of a session. And just work our way through the schedule.
How many sessions do you figure there would be?
That's what we're gonna go through and put together how much we think we can get. I think it really is gonna depend on how much discussion we have. So if we have, a lot more discussion or less discussion as we go through. But I mean, I think we're expecting it to be probably take, I would say between 4 and 6 times to try to go through in detail, or maybe less than that. But I mean, we're wanting to, and we're also anticipating to put together kind of a parking lot issue of items. So as we're going through, so we don't rabbit trail, maybe we can put some things down that maybe need to be either added to the end or readjusted to the schedule so that we can go through. Because I think we all agree that the hope is that for all of us, myself, Brenda, and the board, that we all, have a better understanding of anything from different perspectives as we go through. So, I mean, we want it to be open dialogue. We just got to find a place to start and keep kind of peeling back the onion and, getting through whatever we feel we all need. And when I say we, I mean, that's you guys and us and everybody, and making sure we have the proper information. It may not take that long. It might go smoother. I mean, I think we're willing to want to put the time in up front. We did have a lot of discussion that we feel it's very important to have this discussion now, because I know that Rob and Brenda have been talking to the board about trying to keep us on track to the budget so we can try to meet the assessors' timelines and some of the other pieces for getting everything done at the end. So our hope is to try to bring this to the forward. So when we get ready to do the budget, which isn't my role, I'm the treasurer, so that's really Rob's and Jen's role. That we'll have a good foundation to be able to get there, and we're not getting strung out in some of those meetings on some things that maybe we can deal with up front. So that was the discussion that we had and kind of where we went through, and that's what we were trying to focus on, where we were going to be at.
Well, I'm assuming most of this will be directed at me, not so, you might have a little bit, but Jake will get some, but I'm sure he knows more of it than I do. So yeah, no, I like it.
And I think our hope is that we can also have discussion about different topics and different things, and we can lay those out so that if we have a guideline or an outline, even if that guideline or outline changes at the end of every meeting, we all agree that we need to move something around, that we can, as long as staff has the time to get those things prepared, that we'll be able to get through where we need to, so that the discussions can be had, and that, we're providing you guys everything. I know for my office as being elected, to try to help you guys with what you guys need from what we're statutorily required to be able to provide as well, so that you guys have that information. So that was our main thing. So I will work with Lee on trying to get those scheduled, but that's kind of where we're headed and what we're thinking. And then you guys would have the other time, but it was just, and also to try to make sure we kept it in manageable little pieces. I mean, we could go a lot longer, but some of the stuff might get to be a little fuzzy, and it's just that way there we can have it another week and go from there. Rob did report back that he had a meeting with Heather Joby, and they went over, I don't think it was just Heather Joby, but that's who I had in my notes, to talk about DocuSign and electronic signatures. I think they went through as a technical department. So that is still progressing. He gave an update at the meeting about that, which was essentially just that they met and they're looking at the pricing of it and everything to bring back to the board. And our next meeting will be the 12th at 9 a.m. So that's, most of our meeting was really primarily around discussing this plan for for presenting, doing these workshops. That's 99% of what we covered. Did you have anything to add?
No, I just think it's really important that the workshop fundamentally is to provide information to the board so the board can make policy decisions in the future with the budget. And this was the best plan we could come up with. But I think based on that at the first meeting, if you want more information about this stuff versus that stuff, it's completely adaptable. And I think that we talked about like 2 weeks in between.
Yep, that was
just so that it gave
like the first meeting. That is, sorry, I did not say that. The March 18th would be maybe the first meeting, and then we would have another one on the 1st. Or March 18th, and then another one would be the following 2 weeks.
So it
Thursday.
gave time.
So it gave us
put
enough
that
time
together,
to also,
or
if we had the
to
discussion
change
during
or
there,
do something.
we could change, modify if we want to bring something forward. There was enough time to kind of go through there and do that.
Well, it's probably how long it'll take for my eyes to unglaze.
See, I'm one of those, the 2 weeks is gonna, that's a long time for me, but hey, however you guys want to run it.
No, I mean, and that's why we thought, I mean, honestly, that's why I thought, we'll start with landfill allocation, because that's kind of like the funnest, I mean, from my perspective, having a discussion about, the landfill and where the dollars go and how we arrive at that. That's kind of like low hanging fruit. It's a little more, it's a little sexier than, ooh, here's, oh, here's the road levy. Ooh, how exciting. Right now, Gordy is like, hey.
You're using vulgar, offensive,
sorry.
language right now.
Oh, sorry. We haven't adopted the policy. I'm sorry if I offended you. See, Ron's leaving. Sign me up for trading.
Plausible deniability.
It's plausible deniability. Yeah. Okay, we're exciting language, or exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Okay. Anything else on that part? And so then the other thing is, I just to update you, we're hoping to mail our tax statements between the 8th and the March 8th to the 12th.
Okay, you're using vulgar language.
Yes. They are posted online, so if anybody wants to go look at them, they are on the internet, so you can look them up on there. But the hard copies will be going out in the mail, hopefully, probably more towards the end of that week, but we're frantically working to try to get all the proofs and everything dialed in.
And for those people on online, the best way to find that, if you're wondering how big it is on the treasurer's website, and you can put in your tax ID.
Klickitatcountytreasurer.org, and you go in there and go to parcel search and put your parcel number in there, and you can find it, and you can pay online with a credit card. You have to pay the 2.5%, I think 2.7% now fee, or you can do an e-check for $1.50. The other thing too, I did bring down with me, because I kind of pulled it together. I don't have a lot of detail. I did hear there was a discussion as I was logging in earlier about the building and about the local fund. And I missed the very beginning of it. So I got nothing other than it sounded like we were, from what I gathered, you were wondering about how much money we had put in ourselves versus what the total was. So I brought a few numbers, and I'll take away whatever I need to, and I will. But when we went through and did our numbers, we had assumed that 2018 and 2019 expenses would be kind of our money that we would have paid into it. And I believe that we included the Q1 of 2020, although we can go back, and our reimbursement resolution includes that. So we could pick that up if we needed to for somewhere. That amount was about it's between 1.2 and 1.4 million dollars that we had paid out of cash for engineering and planning and some other types of things. And I have a more detailed.
Right, that's just the pre-blueprint development.
Yep, a lot of stuff before we really got into January of 2020. Right. And the total amount that we funded was $20,502,410. And we thought at the time that the building, and again, the estimate, and it kind of was changing here and there with different pieces, because we're looking for oil or gas or whatever when we were doing, but the number I think was 22.4 million that we thought about where the overall building would be with contingencies and sales tax and so on and so forth. Those were some of the numbers. Now, that's all I heard on was there more? Or did you want anything?
No, I was just trying to figure out, the only thing, the rest of those numbers I knew, but I was trying to figure out how much money we've spent out of our accounts
on that building so far to date was the numbers that I was looking for.
Okay. So as far as what Gordy's coded to the job cost and so on and so forth.
No, I guess I would say our fund or the loan. Not worried about what loan monies went to that project. I'm worried about what we've used of reserves.
What
and
cash
whatever.
did we spend?
So the
What
way
cash
the-
have we spent on that
The
project?
way the local funding works is it's a money that's sitting at the state and we send reimbursement to them for the amount. So when, for example, like the Kirby Nagel, all of those, well, and it kind of worked in
No,
different.
I think you're making this too complicated.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's how much, so we have money that we've spent that was it's all our money, but we're borrowing this. But in the beginning, we spent our own cash.
right, which
That
was
we're
the
not, that's the number he.
Right.
Gotcha.
So about
1.4
$4
million.
Since, right, since that 1.2, 1.4 of the first quarter of 2020, after that, we've been using loan money to pay all your bills and not our own cash money, right?
Right.
No, that 1.2, 1.4 was the answer.
Oh, perfect. Okay, sorry.
And in that loan that we have, that's agreed to, it's locked in, it can't change.
Not variable.
Nope, it's all set.
That was a lunch conversation.
Yeah, no.
About our
Not about
personal-
work.
No, it was about our own
No,
personal
no.
loans about, yeah, variable versus fixed.
Yes,
rates.
yes. Pretty soon, yeah.
And that was a 20-year loan, wasn't it?
20 years, yep.
And what was the interest rate on it?
You know, that's the one piece of thing I didn't write down. It was in the two, like it was pretty low, but I want to say in the low twos, but I don't remember the number specifically.
It was lower than we thought.
Yeah, it was,
It was lower than we budgeted.
Yes, yes.
Speaking of that, I have a question that's completely off topic. What is your feeling and opinion of your investment interests, what it's going to be this year? Of your investments, is that going to go okay, or are you thinking that may not go okay?
Oh, I think we're gonna be way, I mean, our since I think that we're in the 15 basis points right now for the pool. So I haven't looked at it compared to what we budgeted. And I probably could go back and take a look at that. I don't remember, but I know, I mean, since last year we had reached as high as 2.5, I think. But we have, it takes years to get to the 2.5, and it took 2 or 3 months to get to that 20 basis points. So, yeah, I don't see it going anywhere for quite a long time. And anything that you read in regards to the Fed, or I don't think they're really looking for that to change much either over the next, at least for the next year.
Right.
In the crystal balls of all the folks, but yes, we're down there where it's just kind of tends to be staying.
Good enough.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Revenue bonds. Have we done any revenue bonds from the counties for?
We haven't done, we talked about doing a revenue bond when we did the building, but we didn't do a revenue bond because we were, when we went through and looked into doing the state local program, we don't really go to the bond market a lot. So we would have to go get a bond rating. We would have to go out and do all these things, and there would be a lot of costs associated with that. And so really for our county, where really what we have traditionally done, and again, this was, looking back, I mean, every 20 years we do a project. It almost seems like that. And so we haven't really been in the bond market. So we could, we would have to go out and do some official statements and some different things like that. A lot of that stuff, the way we did the local program, we basically used the state's lending rate. We used their rating, which is very high in a premium. And so that's one of the reasons how we were able to get such a low interest rate, because we would have to go out and get our own rating, and we would have to be according to that. So, and that's totally possible. We could do revenue bonds if that's what we were looking to do, but we didn't do that on the building because it's just not we don't go to them. Some counties go on a more regular basis. That just hasn't traditionally been our spot. And when we talked to Mark Greenow and Duncan Brown, who is our financial advisor through PFM, I mean, that was kind of, the fees were going to be reasonable. We were going to get a really good rate. And so it seemed like that was the best way for the county at the time.
Okay. I just didn't know if we'd ever done it.
We had the building is, the Pioneer Center is a revenue bond.
Oh, okay, the Pioneer Center.
Because what you're doing is you're pledging your future revenues to the bond. So they did it that way back then. But the program, is used, and it's used by a lot of folks in the state to do some of these projects. I think there was 3 projects when we went in there.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for the treasurer?
He always comes with such great information.
No,
Just a wealth of knowledge.
I'm
I appreciate that. Thank you.
paying attention to the clock. I was hoping I would, and I'll just very shortly, the discussion we did get, and I know you referenced it. I'm assuming it went out I took part yesterday in a WASAC update on the potential for the latest COVID relief, the 1.9 trillion. There is there's direct allocations to counties in that formula. NACO briefed us on the possibility, which they feel is high, that is going to happen. And so I had talked to Rob about the need that we're going to have a discussion. I'm hoping they can get the band back together as far as the grant committee about, because it's a significant amount of dollars that would come to the county with strings, certainly, just like the last ones. And so that's something, if you guys didn't get that, I don't know.
I got an email that had the breakdown of,
Okay.
it listed the counties and the funds by county.
Okay. And should have been a second one too that had,
Yeah, there was 2.
okay, you got it then. So we do that.
Jake's looking like he didn't. So if I didn't.
Okay. Make sure.
So yes, and as far as the finance as far as the subcommittee, the grant subcommittee, I think that we can do that. I think we had talked in the finance committee about having that kind of even going forward with or without where this was going to go. So we have a group that the finance committee had talked about of having, for more grant, trying to kind of help folks out and trying to keep track of that. So I believe that the group that we spoke about was the fiscal manager, the treasurer's representative and auditor's representative. So I think it was Heather Joby, Nellie, and Jen Neal. And then there was a person from the Public Works Department. There was a person from Human Resources. And then there was a potential to talk to the PA to see if he would have Rebecca be able to be a guidance to them if they got to a point where they might need some background on something like that. And we felt that was a good group to put together of different pieces from HR to different. These grants aren't going to be as HR piece, but that person was on there, so we can do accordingly. But that we did talk at the finance committee about having that group, and that's essentially we can go through, and we talked about also just looking at other grants that were out there.
Right. Well, because I think there will be some. It's not going to be a single thing. If
it's not going to be
through
a
the package. There's different. There may be some economic development or natural resource things. There may be public health components. Public works. There's many pots of money, and so there will be some coordination that have to go on that we're not duplicating. And one thing that we're really pushing at the national level is that as these, especially the dollars that would be the direct appropriation to the county, separate from the other ones I mentioned, we don't really have any hit. In the past, our COVID dollars were state pass-through, and we could get guidance from Commerce about, is this an allowed use or not? This is direct from Treasury.
Gotcha.
And so we're trying to get them, you're going to need people at Treasury that the counties can call and say, is this an allowed use or not? We're thinking about using the money for this.
Some resources.
You're right, some resources. And so we've not heard back. Again, none of this is passed. This is all speculative, but they said the bill sponsor, they expect it to pass, and they expect to be that the dollars, the direct appropriations would go out in April to the counties. So next month.
Right. That's,
Yeah. 4.3 million dollars.
Almost
Potential. That doesn't mean, because you have, it's not reimbursement. It's you sign a certification that you will use the money for the purposes it's for.
Correct.
And then here's your money.
If you look at your WASAC newsletter from March 2nd, it's the first item on it, and you can click the link to get into a website.
From March.
Yeah, it was from yesterday. Yes, Mr. Van Cleve.
Commissioner, the good news is in addition to those other potential pots of money, senior services and these other things, cities are likely to get funds.
Right, they're getting their own.
And school districts.
And school
there's a
districts, so
Substantial amount of money coming into the geographic county.
county as a whole.
How is the school district going to go to the state school? And then
I
come
assume, I mean, I'm not gonna comment on whether I think it's a great idea or not.
No, I wasn't
It's,
meaning, I was just thinking of all, I mean, as the
it's a
treasurer.
lot of money.
We're the
that's
treasurer
gonna
for
be
the school
flying
districts
all
and
over
other
the
folks, so I was
place,
just
so.
thinking through.
Yeah,
how
I don't
that's
know.
gonna
I
fundamentally
assume that will
flow
go
through.
to the state.
I would think to the state.
To my knowledge, I think the counties are direct appropriation from Treasury. The cities are direct appropriations from Treasury. Those other programs are not, because they generally are subrecipients. They're gonna flow through the states to get to seniors or public health or whatever the other pots of money, rental assistance, rental relief, eviction. I mean, there's a whole list of things.
Yeah.
And that's gonna have to be a discussion, really community-wide, as we decide what's an appropriate use for this and making sure that we're not either duplicating programs that are being funded through a different, because this is different than the past one was. The guidance was anything that was allowable under the CARES Act is allowable and then some. So it's like anything that you used dollars for previously would automatically be an eligible use.
Okay.
But they've also written the language, so it's pretty broad. So we'll see.
Almost covers our public, or not public works, our sheriff's department.
Yeah. Yeah, just for some perspective, our property tax
4.8.
receipt is 4.6.
4.6 to 4.7.
7 for the whole year.
So we don't want to discuss how the feds think they're going to arrive at this.
No, yeah, but it's like if
They're
they're
not going to be the only county not accepting it.
no, it's like if they've already, believe me, you sign, we're all signing the credit slip for it.
In blood.
For 2032.
For 20, well, if only.
Or
2072.
2072.
It's more, anyway, so
Way out
so
there.
more to come with that. I think we're gonna have to all be engaged on that.
Okay.
Very good. And I are trying to track those bills, and we've got the bills and the text from the committees as it goes through and works and changes a little bit. So,
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
wow.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you. You guys have a great day.
All right, sorry, actually, I'm not terrible.
You're not terribly sorry?
No, I'm not terribly behind schedule. That was better. Actually, I'm right on schedule. All right. Elected officials update. That was by accident. I'd like to say, truth be told. Prosecuting attorney, David Cannell. Mr. Cannell, do you have anything that you wish to report to the
Yes,
board?
thank you for the time, board. There's a few things I'd like to discuss. So last week, the Superior Court did issue a 9th revised administrative order. The 20-something trials have been scheduled for March 17th have now been pushed to May 19th. So we're up to about 30, I think 29 or 30 set for that day. And then much more set in June. Unfortunately, that there's not much to be done on that. So those the concerns about the backlog, the inability to move forward with jury trials, that will be at that point hitting 15 months without a jury trial in Klickitat County. Second, we did the Washington Supreme Court. I just want to give you a heads up. The last week in State versus Blake, this was thankfully not a Klickitat County case, but it was a case regarding simple possession of a controlled substance. The Supreme Court validated our controlled substance statute, ruling that the current form of the statute prohibiting the possession of controlled substance was unconstitutional because it's interpreted as a strict liability crime, does not require proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the individual knew that A, they had a controlled substance, and B, that it was in fact a controlled substance. The case that led to this it's pretty shocking development. Basically, it's kind of ongoing joke in the law enforcement community, the "not my pants" defense. It's shockingly common to hear people claim that the pants they're wearing and the jacket they're wearing was not theirs. It just happens to have a bag of meth in it, and they just been wearing it around. Well, that was enough, which typically juries dismiss. It's never been an issue for 45 years of interpreting the statute, but 5 members of the Supreme Court thought otherwise, and that it was too severe of a consequence to have a felony conviction for quote unquote innocently possessing a bag of methamphetamine in your pants. But unfortunately, it did not just affect that particular case. They ruled the entire statute unconstitutional. So in one decision in the state of Washington, we have now decriminalized the possession of a controlled substances, irregardless of the amount. So there is currently no ability to prosecute possession of methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, etc. And unfortunately, folks don't seem too optimistic that the legislature will try to deal with this. The only proposed fix at this point is to draft a knowingly requirement into the statute, which would require the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person knew that they had the drugs and that they knew it was drugs. Which when the jury's instructed on that becomes extremely problematic for the juries. It's kind of like a trespass. People think it's real simple. You're on someone else's property. What's the issue? Well, the jury is instructed that we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the knowledge requirement that they knew in that instances they were trespassing on this, that they knew that to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that they knew they had a controlled substance. That is a pretty high standard. The strict liability interpretation of our controlled substance statute has been around for 40 plus years. So it was 40 plus years of precedent that was simply overruled with no vote, no preparation, no lead time. The state of Oregon recently decriminalized the minimal possession of what's quote unquote personal use controlled substances. But they had a vote of the people to do that. They had months of lead time. They had a massive increase in funding for rehabilitation programs, coupled with that referendum. We got none of that. We at 9:45 on Thursday morning, the entire state decriminalized the possession of a controlled substance. So it's going to create massive problems for staff time, for court time. We have 40 years of convictions that people have probably legitimate grounds to seek to vacate those convictions. We have a very real possibility that legal financial obligations that were collected will have to be refunded. The calculation of scores for countless individuals that have been sentenced in the last 40 years will have to be likely reconfigured. We had to release, I believe, 5 people out of our jail that were serving time on drug possession charges. So pretty shocking and radical development, and that is where we are. We also, locally, we did have a homicide last week that is subject to an ongoing investigation, so no real comment to be made as to whether the homicide was justifiable or constituted murder. There's ongoing investigation to that effect, and that's all I can say on that. So I'll be happy to take any questions or comments.
Are any of those 27 trials that were pushed to May 19th, are any of those going away because of this Supreme Court ruling?
Good question.
No. Generally, simple possession charges traditionally have resolved pretty quickly. I mean, it's the drugs on you or not has been the issue. So those did not end up going to trial all that often. There are a few drug charges related to the manufacturing of marijuana, which under most, I think, reasonable interpretation is not affected by the Blake decision last week. However, the rest of the cases are not, no. Let me take that back. There was one case that was pending that was part of that group that was dismissed last week. But it had not been seriously contemplated that that individual would be going to trial because she was about to be likely admitted to our drug court program. So that is Also, another collateral consequence that most elected prosecutors in the state are reporting that their drug court programs might not be viable at this point because of the large numbers of individuals that were adjudicated on possession of controlled substance that sought to avoid the consequence of incarceration and in many cases the felony convictions through the drug court. So that's all out the window now too.
What about, so this is primarily on like, if bagging your pants, but if you're hauling, 300 pounds of cocaine in your car.
It's not mine.
Can you still claim that, or would that still, you could take that and beyond a reasonable doubt, prove that?
Well, not on a simple possession. We would have to successfully characterize that as either a delivery of a controlled substance or possession with intent to deliver, which is more problematic, but that statute in itself wasn't ruled unconstitutional. The primary problem we're going to have is usually the investigation that arise at the search and seizure of such a large amount of controlled substance almost routinely starts with suspicion of a possession. So, for example, many cases, especially along the 97 corridor, on the Oregon side, on the interstate corridor, they get many cases of large volumes that initially start with a suspicion of possession, a smell or awkward behavior. There's what's called a limited Terry stop that you can use to, you can seize the person for a small amount of time in order to have, for example, a narcotics dog come to the scene. The narcotics dog will possibly alert. If so, you obtain a search warrant to pursue the investigation of possession of a controlled substance based on the dog alerting. And then when that search warrant is served, well, lo and behold, there's kilos or multiple pounds, and that elevates that to a possession with intent. The problem now is that we cannot call in the dogs. We cannot detain anyone. The narcotics dogs are basically the thousands and possibly, frankly, millions of dollars expended in the state of Washington on training of these canines. I cannot be utilized at this point. So it's still theoretically possible to move forward with the prosecution of a possession with intent, but the tools for obtaining the evidence necessary to bring those charges have been severely restricted.
I sure defunded the police.
Well, that's
You got more good news for us?
yes,
See, I
you're
did-
a ray of sunshine.
I was on that news last week, so that's, I've already broken the whole,
Wow.
living the dream.
Well,
And the key part that he said in there is they didn't, obviously, we don't have any funding for drug rehabilitation programs or counseling or none of that, and so, yeah, you don't have jail, you have no counseling, you just let it go. But
You can
don't,
now get in more trouble under the law for speeding and jaywalking than shooting up heroin in public.
that's why I brought up the jaywalking earlier.
I was just following.
Ignorance is no excuse.
Well, apparently it is now.
Not my pants.
Not my pants. All right, thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Any questions on other topics for the prosecutor? No?
Were you on earlier when a gentleman came on public comment queue about the dog, the dog ordinance? Dog control zone.
No, I don't recall.
And so in the dog control zone, it's title 6.2 of our county code, 6.20, I think. And in order to become part of the dog ordinance area, you have to get 50% of the people within that area to agree, and then we'd hold public hearings and all this. That's quite a huge undertaking. It looked to me like it was a very old ordinance. That's one way to do it. Is another way that we could include an area within a dog ordinance through the legislative path via three of us commissioners holding public hearings to make changes to that ordinance.
He's thinking about it.
Well, I can't provide definitive
No,
answer
no,
right
of
now.
course
I
not.
would think that's likely, but if you guys can have Lee write that up and shoot that out to us, we'd be happy to look more into that. I suspect the answer is likely, well, you could amend the underlying ordinance to remove that condition. So, this is a new issue to me, so I want to be very cautious in giving any firm opinion, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't a way to do that legislatively, but we'll be happy to look into that.
That would be great. Thank you
That
very
would
much.
be my hope, is instead of writing something new, we go in and amend the one that's already there.
Yeah.
Don't need to add more paper, let's remove some paper.
Thank you, Q. That was my only one.
Okay, nothing else? All right, thank you, sir. We will move on then in our agenda. Next up is Department Update, Natural Resource Director Dave McClure. Follow this, yeah, go ahead.
Let's see, so the topic I want to discuss is some litigation the county has been involved in. And I'm not sure, maybe the prosecutor can tell me at what point, should we just go into executive session to sort of open that up, or what would be your advice on that?
Prosecutor Cannell, can you offer some guidance? I think they.
I was on mute, sorry about that. So
Oh.
if you want to have a discussion about pending litigation, then yeah, we should go in executive.
I would say so. How long do you think?
15 minutes, maybe?
Okay.
Let's start there.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe hopefully stop.
Stop.
Do we have any not department, but board pending that before we kick all
Yeah,
the people over here?
because we likely, I'd like to do it at the end.
I don't plan to, but I want to hold the option to. I don't have anything, but if I want to say something later.
Well, we can always reconvene. It's not. Do you have anything?
I don't think there will be any on my part.
I think I just have that.
I got nothing that I can't live without.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chairman, would you please ask the public to remove themselves from the.
okay. Yeah, and just for folks on the phone or on the Zoom, we're going to go into executive session, so it'll be closed to the public. We're going to be talking about current litigation. This is our last piece of business for the day, and so I don't anticipate that we're going to come back in open session and do any business other than to just adjourn the meeting. And so I'll ask folks to leave. We will go into executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.110 (1) for litigation for 15 minutes.